What's up, everybody? Welcome to GameFace, episode 374 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host for the last 20-some years of video game insanity, and we're here to do it again on this fine Tuesday, and alongside me to do that is Matt Keil. It really struck me this week, for some reason, that I've been doing this for like 27 years. That's insane.
It's a long time.
It really is, man. Holy cow. I don't know what, something happened and I just like did the math and I was like, wow, 97 I launched my first gaming website. And then about a month later I made my first penny off, and it really was like, I think my first month of ad revenue running street level gaming, I think I made like 35 cents.
Well, this year's 24 years since I started working for Tech TV.
Wow.
And I was 24 when I started working for Tech TV. So I've lived my entire lifespan again.
As an adult.
Since then.
You know, your entire adult life you've been doing
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's amazing. Well, welcome to GameFace.
Although I remember when I was 24 and before I got that job, I was sitting around because I was like 23, 24, and I'm like, I've been out of college like a year and a half. I've already failed. I haven't gotten like a real job. I'm just working retail still. It's like, and it was like, you look back now and you're like, you were 23, you absolute infant.
You thought it was all over.
Child.
My life is all over.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I did the same thing when we moved to LA, 20 years ago, and I was like, oh my God, I'm 28. Like, it's too late to move to LA. We're too old to move to LA. It's just like, oh my God, I would commit so many weird satanic rituals to be 28 again.
Me too. I'm right there with you. Well, if you can do the math, our show, 40 plus years of experience covering video games professionally. Which is pretty amazing. I don't know if you're going to find that on too many other shows. I think Game Scoop.
You're going to find most podcasts. You're going to find people are not even as old as my career.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
Please, child from 2003, tell me about what the 90s were like.
Exactly. I think the only
games
other
were so much
podcast
better on the Genesis. You were negative 10 when that happened. Like
sports games, definitely.
Sports. I love paying $99 in 1993 money for RPGs. That was great.
The only other podcast I can think of that's kind of in the same zone is IGN's Game Scoop, which is IGN's multi-platform podcast. It's the one that isn't just related to one platform.
It's so crazy that they still do platform-specific stuff even all these years
because there's
later.
just fans that just want to hear about that. I mean, Matt, look at this. Last Stand Media, they're all PlayStation. That's a PlayStation podcast. That's it. I mean, I can't even imagine being on a podcast where I can't talk about other things, or if we're supposed to. I mean, I'm sure you can, as long as you're being negative about it. Right? Yeah, it's hard to be positive about the other things because your whole
Well, I'll tell you this much: PlayStation focused podcast. Good luck this year.
Yeah, you're gonna have a rough ride. Yeah.
But hope you like Rise of the Ronin.
Yeah. But Game Scoop's funny because like IGN's like platform specific podcast, it's all young people. And then they shove all the old dudes onto Game Scoop. I'm not kidding. If you want, look at the cast of all their shows. They're all kids except for Game Scoop.
Game Scoop does kind of sound like something like old guys would walk in with canes for.
Well, it's been around for a really long time. I love those guys, by the way, the Game Scoop crew. I love those dudes. So anyway, there are some other places you can find people with about as much experience as Matt and I, but not many. That's for sure. How's your week been, Matt?
All right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Anything special happen this week?
Friday I went to see the Auschwitz exhibit at the Reagan Library.
Oh, how was that?
Informative.
Sobering? Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what do you just have to say? Fun?
I don't know. Yeah, what word do you use?
Yeah. It was sobering's a good one. Like, I tell you, it is different. You know, obviously I'm a big World War II person. I know about the Holocaust. I've read all that. You know, I'm very interested in all that. I'm very well informed on all that. But I'll tell you, seeing the actual objects in front of you it's powerful. It's crazy. It's like the desk that the commandant of Auschwitz sat behind and gave all those orders. It's right there in front of you. The thing that gets me are the shoes. Empty shoes. There's like they have a red fancy shoe that some woman had that they found on top of a pile. There's a shoe of a young boy, like a very young boy with his socks still stuffed in it. It's like, because the thing about the shoe is like you can tell stuff about someone from a shoe.
Yeah.
You know, not
were they a laborer?
Or just how big they were. You know, the size of them.
How old they were.
And also, it's like the thing is like, no one, especially then, no one goes anywhere without their shoes. You know, like the shoe being parted from the person is like you're never coming back.
That's true.
And it's so it was a sobering thing. Yeah, that's a good word.
I have not gone there personally.
Well, unfortunately, it ended on the 28th, on Sunday.
Yeah.
Also, the day I was there was coincidentally the 79th anniversary of the Soviet Army liberating Auschwitz.
Wow.
January 26, 1945.
Wow. Crazy.
So yeah, it was a good day, even though it was at the Reagan Library.
Yeah.
I've never been there before, and it was so weird. It was such a weird thing. But I will say this. In the entranceway, there's like the big line, the line thing, like snaky line to get in to like check. It wasn't actually that many people there. But I went in and I looked, and the floor has tiles laid down, like stickers on the tiles from like when you had to do social distancing. And I'm like, oh, how did that go over at the Reagan Library? And you're like, okay. Most of the staff was masked. I was surprised. Yeah. And I looked at it, and it has a thing. It says, stand 6 feet apart. As Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's pretty great. Yeah. I thought that was... Because you know what? For all his faults, Reagan did believe in science for the most part.
Yeah,
but yeah, and I poked around afterwards, and I saw his Air Force One, and you had to walk through the plane, and it was pretty cool.
Cool.
The funny thing is, you go back to the press section. I'm like, this sucks as much as Coach does now. Like, the chairs don't go back. They're stuck up against this thing, and their phone isn't the security clearance phone, so they just get to talk to normal people.
Yeah. To your point about seeing stuff in person and then it hitting home, I went to a museum in Washington, D.C. a few years ago called the Newseum. I think it's gone now. I think it actually went out of business. But they had Ted Kaczynski's cabin in there. They had brought the whole
I heard
cabin.
about that. Yeah, I remember hearing
the whole cabin with all his stuff was sitting in there, and that's when it hit home for me. You could see his workbench with like gunpowder stains on it, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, you're right. Seeing it with your own eyes makes a big difference.
I saw an interesting thing this week about him. Actually, about that situation. It was called linguistic forensics, and how they figured out who he was because of all the different the turns of phrase he used and all that. And then when they put out like kind of a thing highlighting all those, his brother recognized. Yeah, the turns of phrase, like, that's my brother, and his brother turned him in. I'm like, that's fantastic. It's like, so when you write your 900-page manifesto, use a lot of expressions you don't normally use.
Good luck with that, by the way. Or how we got on all these topics.
Or maybe just don't send the police a 900-page letter.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
That might be a good way to not get caught if you're going to do that.
Anyway, well, welcome to GameFace. It is episode 374. We have a great episode for you guys today. 2 huge games to discuss in today's episode. We're going to talk about Tekken 8. We're going to talk about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth today.
Yeah. But you go find that last conversation we just had on GameScoop.
Yeah,
good luck.
You definitely won't find it there, I guarantee it. Hope you guys have had a great week filled with great games. I'm guessing you guys have probably started playing Tekken 8 or Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, or both. And those tend to be like the best episodes of GameFace where you guys
maybe you've already completed Suicide Squad. I don't know.
No, probably not. And we'll get to why not here in a minute.
Yeah, I didn't get to play that because I got it on PC and it didn't go live until 10 this morning.
Yeah. Yeah,
PC players got the early access way later than everybody else.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that on next week's episode. We'll be talking about Persona 3 Reload in next week's episode. So good start to the year, actually, for episodes. We have had great content throughout the year so far.
A couple of these things could have been released like a week ago, maybe.
Yeah.
We're all piled up on each other.
Yeah, here at the end of January, early February, for some reason. They're all kind of stacked together.
Everybody got to get back in the office and up and running. And
then there's an open beta for Skull and Bones, believe it or not, like the second week of February, and then it comes out on February 16th. So we got some good stuff coming up here on GameFace over the next couple weeks. And don't forget, this is the last episode of GameFace like this. Things are going to be changing for next week's episode. You have to wait and see what the changes are, but the show will be changing a pretty good bit for next week's episode. You guys should be excited to check it out. Again, we'll be here at twitch.tv/SIFTD at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, like we are right now. My week's been pretty normal, I guess is the best way to put it. I played a lot of games, spent a lot of time playing games this week. Still got all that family drama going on from the holidays, which isn't good. It's just kind of this thing that's just like sitting in the back of my mind at all times. But we're working through that as a family. We'll see how all that stuff goes. But anyway, big stuff coming here next week for GameFace, but we have a great episode for you guys today. And with that, I think we might as well get on with it. Although, one thing before we do get to the housekeeping, today is the last day to sign up for the Sifted Fantasy Challenge. You guys had a full week from last week's episode to go and make your picks. They're still open right now. They're open until midnight tonight. So you have all day today to go and make your picks for the Sifted Fantasy Challenge. If you want to figure out how to do it, just go to sifted.net right now. There's an article about it pinned to the top of the homepage right now. But today is your last day to get those picks in. Matt, I will say one thing. I feel like people have lost the spirit of the Sifted Fantasy Challenge a little bit. Like, so remember when we were doing the draft last week and people kept saying this game's not there and that game's not there, and as it turned out, they were all there pretty much. They were just like freaking out over nothing, which was a little disappointing that they wouldn't check hard before they raise a stink about it. But anyway, like, just so many people complaining about stuff like, oh, where's this game? Where's that game? One person was like, I'm not doing it this year. He goes, I used to do this for fun, and now I'm not doing it anymore. It's like, well, then just do it for fun. What are you talking about? Like, what
was missing?
A game. Oh, why did you start this late? It's just like, dude, it's for fun. Have fun. Can we have fun?
No, people wanted Tekken or whatever.
Why can we not have fun? I just don't understand why everybody has to complain about things all the time. Why is everybody so negative all the time? Like, wake up!
Because that's what gets clicks.
But they're not. No, these are just people watching our content.
I know, but like whatever you watch, whatever the influencers you watch are the people that are going to influence how you behave.
Find better influencers.
But that's not what works. Negativity gets clicks, and that's become the online discourse. That's why That's why 7 years later there are still people complaining about The Last Jet. They talk more about the stuff they hate than the stuff they love.
I am so far beyond that mindset and that way of thinking. It just doesn't even enter into my brain to be that way. Like, have fun, guys. It's supposed to be fun. Like, it's not this deathly serious live or die thing. It's the Sifted Fantasy Challenge. Pick your 10 games and cross your damn fingers. That's it. Just have fun with it. That's all I want you guys to do. That's why we started it. So you guys had something fun to do. Just have fun. Have fun on the website. Have fun playing video games. Stop being so negative. It drives me bonkers. Like, our whole society is this way anymore. It drives me nuts. It's like, if you're positive anymore, you're the weirdo. Like, what the hell? I don't get it. Let's turn it around, people. Right here, we're starting with this stream. Not gonna happen.
No, not.
Definitely not gonna happen.
We have our negative days.
So anyway, the challenge. You have the end of the day today to get your picks in. Again, go to sifted.net. There's a story at the top there. It'll take you to the link. You literally just use this fun interface to pick 10 games. You pick your 10 games. Make sure you pick your ringers first, because the picks are weighted. Like, you get multipliers for each of your picks that go down the more you pick. So make sure you have your best games loaded in your first 5 or 6 picks or whatever, and then good luck, because I doubt I'll have all my games show up. In fact, Matt, the way I play the Sifted Fantasy Challenge, since we can't really win, is I just try to get the highest score possible.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what everybody does.
But I mean, like, shooting for the stars, like, not really caring if a game's going to come out or not. Like, I'm obviously I play very risky, which is kind of fun, and I always finish like 50th.
I think I picked maybe more risks than I did on my main list. But like, I try to make sure it's all 10. But like, I can't remember what I think I did put Star Wars Outlaws in there, so I'm clearly not getting that. I'm clearly not going totally safe.
Yeah. Maybe I don't at all.
I can't remember. I know I did it, but I don't remember what I did.
I picked tons of long shots. You guys should play it safe, though. I mean, there are real prizes on the line. Again, if you're a patron of ours, you win 2 games, and if you're not a patron, you win 1 game.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever tie my best, which was like 5th. I think I got 5th.
I think you did one time, actually. Yeah, I always just don't care. Like, I care. I want to I want to set, like, the record is what I'm trying to do. Not just win, I guess, is the way I look at it. So anyway, today's the last day.
None of you jerks get games.
What'd you say?
You're like, I win. None of you people get games.
that suck.
Imagine that would just be, you just give it a 2nd place or something, right?
Yeah. So anyway, get in there.
You notice how he didn't say picks. He would? That's interesting.
Get in there, make your picks. Time is running out. You got until the end of the day today to do it. And with that, it's time to get on with the housekeeping. First, what we're going to discuss today is an event that's happening tomorrow. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, on Tuesdays, it usually works out well for us that these events usually happen on Mondays, but this is not the case. There is a Sony State of Play tomorrow that PlayStation is saying they're going to show off 15 games. Mm-hmm. That seems like a lot.
It seems like 7 indie games.
Yeah.
And like some other things we've already heard of before.
Well, they did give us some hints on the stuff that they're going to show tomorrow. And obviously, Matt and I will talk about this in next week's episode of GameFace, what they actually showed. But just to prepare you guys for tomorrow, and it will be on Sifted as always, they are going to show Rise of the Ronin, which is a PlayStation 5 exclusive, console exclusive. We talked about this. I drafted it on my fantasy team last week. We also talked about it in the PlayStation preview like 3 weeks ago. I don't know if we need to talk about it too much, but it's another historical angled Souls-like from Team Ninja, basically. And again, it is a PlayStation 5 exclusive. It's coming pretty soon. It's not too far away. So they're going to blow that game out. Another game that they're going to show a good bit of is Death Stranding 2. We just got that news this morning that Kojima's sequel will be shown. We don't know what we're going to see, but I mean, this first trailer that they gave us is like 3 minutes long. Mm-hmm. Like, usually debut trailers are like a minute 10, a minute 20. He gave us like 3 minutes, and I'll admit, watching this trailer, I'm not connecting a lot of dots here between this and the last game. Are you?
Well, I mean,
you played a lot more of it than I did.
I mean, it's the girl,
right?
And there's a baby, and there's the baby's pod, so it's probably the BB-1 for whatever from he carried around.
So you think this is going back in time?
No, I think this is after. Like,
because the baby's older now. You're right. The
baby's older and out of the pod.
Right? Yeah, the baby's older. Is she putting it back in the pod?
I don't know what she's doing. she's running away with the baby because the fucking Imperial Royal Guard have shown up.
Uh-huh.
And, I don't know. It's Kojima. I don't fucking know what he's doing.
Mitchell Ness says, have you seen the leaks? They look credible. I haven't seen any leaks. Have you?
I mean, there was this. Was this an announcement or a leak? I don't know.
Pharaoh Doll says, I will give my left boob for a Bloodborne sequel. Ain't gonna happen, but a lady can dream. I feel like eventually that will come. Like, I think that's going to happen.
I don't think so. I don't think From really has any interest in a platform exclusive anymore.
What'd you say?
I don't think From really has an interest in a platform exclusive anymore.
Well, I think Sony just gives them so much money to make it that they just can't turn it down.
I don't think Sony's going to do that with that. Because here's the thing. I know everybody's very loud about Bloodborne and Bloodborne Remaster, Bloodborne 2 online. There's very few people who actually want... Like, it's like the thing where people screamed about the Zack Snyder Justice League for years, and it got 2 million views.
Yeah.
2 million views. Rebel Moon got 34 million. Yeah. That's nothing. Like, yeah, it's a loud, small group of people, and I promise From would rather move on and make another Elden Ring and make millions and millions of dollars on that, and
on their own IP where they make all the money.
It's just, because also, like, don't monkey's paw that too hard, or Sony might hire someone other than From to make Bloodborne 2.
No, you're right.
And how's that going to work out?
Because does PlayStation own that IP?
That is Sony's. Yeah,
I think it does. Yeah, so it could technically hire someone
They just shut down Bloodborne Kart, which is a
that's
fan,
right,
a fan
actually.
game.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay. Vincent says the other leaks include the Until Dawn remaster. Yeah, we've had that up on SIFTD.
Yeah.
Did he just say Judas?
Judas, yeah.
Oh, wow. Finally, we'll get another look at the spiritual successor to BioShock.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe we should not insult it by saying that. We should just say it's its own thing.
Well, it's Ken Levine's new game, and it looks a whole lot like BioShock. What we've seen of it so far.
It's clearly the same guy.
Yeah. Yep. Until Dawn remaster, we've kind of known about that for a couple weeks now, which is a little bit surprising. Pharaoh Doll says, and I think Matt's correct. So
I don't think Until Dawn remaster makes some sense, just in the sense that they're making a movie now, so you might as well make it available.
Yeah. Yep.
Sonic Generations remaster, which is like, sure, all right.
Are we ready for that?
Does that need that?
I don't know.
I thought it looked pretty good.
To your point about Bloodborne 2, I think there are even less people.
I think there's. Maybe not specifically for Sonic Generations. I'd imagine the Sonic fan base is bigger than the Bloodborne fan base.
Yeah, probably, but I don't think they were asking.
I don't
for
know
Sonic
if Generations remastered is really what they're after there, but yeah.
And somebody asked if those leaks sound legit. I mean, they make sense. Like,
they're boring enough to be real. Yes.
Well, Judas, I'm really excited.
Judas is cool. Like, I hope Judas is more of a, more meat on it than just like, here's another trailer.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. Putting in this, like, you're tempted to think like they're this year.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do the first day to play in the year, and it's going to be like and we don't know anything else that's coming from Sony this year except Rise of the Ronin, really.
Yeah.
So you're kind of hoping that, like, this is going to lay out what the plan for 2024 is.
Yeah.
And
it should.
That's including Judas and Death Stranding 2, like, sure.
Yeah. I'm excited for Judas.
Well,
I hope it does
the new
show
Metro
up.
game. Yeah, I heard about that.
A Metro sequel, all in the leaks. Silent Hill 2 remake, they're going to show that again, so maybe we'll get another trailer. Wow, that's looking pretty good. Judas, Rise of the Ronin, Until Dawn, Silent Hill 2 remake, Death Stranding 2, a Metro sequel, and then you're forgetting one, which is, and I have it written down here,
Stellar Blade.
Stellar Blade, yeah. And people were wondering, like, why we didn't draft this.
Because it looks like every other character action game I've ever seen, and I don't really trust it to get more than a 7.
Yeah.
Like, this just looks like if you're gonna, like, like the state of Japanese game development has shifted to the point where if you're gonna like if you say Japanese game to me, I don't think about like an action RPG or a JRPG anymore. I think about this garbage.
Yeah, hack and slash.
It's hack and slash character action, Devil May Cry like thing that is just full of over designed sci-fi and fantasy nonsense that nobody's gonna remember a week later.
I really wondered if this game was ever going to come out, but it is. I mean, it's pretty much penciled in now for PlayStation this year. They promoted it already once recently. So, yeah, I mean, this game hasn't really connected with me for whatever reason. It looks like one of those games that has a cool trailer, but not. But the game's not. Hey, Raojin Z. First time chat. I'm going to bring you up, bro. First time chatting on GameFace. Let's see what he says. Finally rejoined Sifted as a member. Thank you. I usually watch on YouTube a week later and had no idea I'd be waltzing right into a live show, but glad to be here and supporting the show right as it is happening. Thank you, Rojin Z.
Or Rojin Z, depending on where you are.
Yep. And here's a round of applause in thanks. We appreciate every single one of our patrons. You do not get lost in the shuffle with us like you do at a lot of the other big gaming Patreons. We appreciate every single one of you guys. So thank you again, Raojin Z. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Come on back next week and we'll see you here.
Yeah, Stellar Blade is Korean, but like they are just duplicating the same trend that already has existed in Japan for years. Like,
which is why
we don't need any more of these.
Yeah.
I really don't have any interest in playing any more of these ever again.
Well, the other thing we talked about it during, was it draft or 2024 preview? I don't remember. But we talked about how a lot of these Korean games, like they look great in trailers and then they either never come out or when they do, they're like jank fest. So I was not going to draft this game under any circumstances. Like, look, if it comes out and it ends up being good, Stellar Blade 2, I'll be all over it for fantasy drafts. But people got to show it to me before I'm drafting it. That's all there is to it. I'm not going out on the limb with some brand new studio, some brand new IP that we don't know about. That's how you lose fantasy drafts. That's how you lose fantasy leagues, video game fantasy leagues.
And Hail to Starscream points out that the Metro game's supposed to be VR.
It's a VR game.
Which would track, and especially because they did mention PSVR 2 in the State of Play announcement.
I mean, that's kind of the X factor here, isn't it, Matt? What's up with PlayStation VR 2?
Nothing is up with PlayStation VR 2. That's what.
Well,
but clearly throwing in a Metro bone does sort of make sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, actually. One of the early questions for 2024 for Pactor on Pactor Factor was, is PlayStation VR 2 dead? And he unequivocally said, yes, it absolutely is dead.
Yes, it is.
It's a shame, but it is.
I mean, Metro, they'll have some things like this where they sort of, shock it with the paddles a couple times, but it's not going to...
Yep. And look, until PlayStation...
It was honestly over the day it came out.
It really was. Until PlayStation commits to supplying those platforms with real first-party games consistently, because what PlayStation does, it puts its eggs in the first basket. And they're like, let's see how it does. And if it doesn't take off like wildfire, they just give up on it. And that looks like exactly what is happening again with PlayStation VR 2. So I hope that there's something that's interesting for it in tomorrow's State of Play. It kind of needs to happen. So... Anyway, anything else that maybe you're looking for in tomorrow's thing, Matt?
Not really.
I mean, I'm looking for like first party stuff for 2024. Like,
I don't think we're gonna get any of that.
I don't think we'll get that tomorrow either. But man, we really need like some kind of hope that there's like.
Yeah, and of course, eternally, I'm just like, you should save more games for more first party games from PS3.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, there's a bunch on there.
You should do a Resistance collection. You should do a Sly Cooper collection. You should do a Jack collection.
Yeah.
All that stuff should be playable on the modern console.
We may see something like that tomorrow. I can see something like that being in there.
Ratchet collect, like what? You know, it might help Ratchet sales next time around, other than not being that early in a
console's life cycle.
Console that you can't buy anywhere yet. Having the old games available and playable.
Because you got to realize there's new generations of players that are coming of age every day. They don't know what Ratchet is. They don't know what Jack is for sure.
I'm sure they'd enjoy playing them.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Going Commando and Up Your Arsenal are eternal, basically.
Yeah. First couple Jack games are pretty good. Kind of flew off the rails after that, but...
Yeah, I think the Jack trilogy is interesting in that none of them are remotely comparable to each other. Really.
Yeah.
It's like the first one's a Banjo-Kazooie clone, the second one is like a weird open world game, and the third one is a post-apocalyptic racing game almost.
It's so weird.
Like, I mean, I know it's an open world game too, but like you spend so much time racing in the third Jack. It's so weird. And then they made a racing game.
Yeah, they did. Jack Team Racing.
Jack X.
Jack X. Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, like that. Naughty Dog was on some good shit that week, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Well, they do live
It's no Bloodborne cart, but I'll take it.
Well, they do live in California.
I mean, obviously, I'm hoping it goes to Tsushima 2. So any
that is what we're kind of waiting for.
Any
right?
Sucker Punch news is good for me anytime because those guys never miss. So.
Yeah. Still need to know what Sony Bend is working on right now.
Are they doing their own thing, or are they just a support studio?
The messages coming out of there have been mixed. So it seems like they're supporting, but still pitching projects to the mothership. I don't know. So there's still lots of X factors with PlayStation more than any. So again, don't forget tomorrow. I believe it's at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. It goes up, but we'll have it curated for you guys at SIFTD.net, so you won't miss it. We'll rate it, so it'll be high up in all your guys' SIFs. You won't be able to miss it. So big state of play coming up tomorrow. Next up, more rumblings about Switch 2. And Matt, this might be the first little piece of information we've got about Switch 2 that has been discouraging to me, other than the fact that it's a hybrid again, which neither you nor I are really big fans of.
But that was inevitable.
But Bloomberg reported this week that the Switch 2 will have an 8-inch screen, which is great. Because right now, the Switch OLED screen is 7 inches. So that's an extra inch on a handheld. That's a big deal. But unfortunately, the screen is an LCD screen. Which means that basically what Nintendo is trying to do is repeat the entire process that it had with Switch all over again.
Yeah, they want you to buy the OLED version.
Buy the cheaper version first. Make those... Because here's the other thing. LCD screens, easy, cheap to get. Won't hurt your production. You won't be waiting for screens to show up.
Yeah, easy to replace.
Easier. Yep, exactly. So you go through your whole first 3 years, basically your extended launch period with that model, and then year 3 or 4, you introduce the Switch 2 or whatever the hell it's called, OLED model.
The Super Nintendo Switch OLED model.
Right, there you go. And they get us to buy it all over again. How do you feel about that, Matt? I know you don't care about the handheld functionality.
I do not care. All this does is make the system cheaper, and I'm never going to look at that screen, so great.
Here's a question for you. Would you rather have a 7-inch OLED screen or an 8-inch LCD screen?
I would rather have a 65-inch OLED screen because that's what I have.
That's hilarious. I'll be honest with you, Matt. I would prefer the 7-inch OLED screen over an extra inch of LCD. But again, I don't really play in handheld mode at all. I'm like Matt.
It's not an issue for me.
I like my OLED LG TV. And that's where I will play the Switch 2 99% of the time.
Yeah, the only time I've ever played it handheld mode is when the lag from hooking it up to the dock to the TV made it catching the big fish impossible in Animal Crossing. It was just enough lag that you couldn't hit the button in time. So I had to play it handheld to catch like the swordfish and stuff. Yeah, that was it.
The only time I played Switch in handheld is when I need to play a game for GameFace for SIFTD, and I like football's on or the Penguins are playing, and then I'll put like NFL football on the TV, and then I'll play on my handheld. Other than that, I never use a handheld mode. So it doesn't matter that much to me. But what about you guys? Would you guys rather have the 7-inch OLED, or would you rather have an extra inch of an LCD screen?
Truth be told, I'd rather have an actual game console that competes with the Xbox and the PlayStation. But
I think we know that's not coming from. Yeah,
that's
probably not going to happen.
Also, but in the same same ballpark of like we knew Nintendo's not going to do that. Did you expect Nintendo to do anything different than this?
I thought once they moved to an OLED screen, I thought that they would stick with it.
I never believed that for 1 second.
I did.
OLED is such a reliable upgrade. They're always going to go for that.
I get that, but it's like once you go OLED, it's hard to go back.
Well, you're gonna.
I know you're gonna. They're gonna force you to.
What are you gonna do? Not play the new Mario game?
Yeah.
They know. Yeah. They know they got you.
Yeah.
That's the problem with being a Nintendo fan.
I'm just curious why they think that is the right decision.
Because they're going to make more money from these people that just go buy a second Switch.
They're going to sell out for the first 2 years regardless.
Sure.
They could charge almost whatever they want.
But this way they have a very easy, proven way to get you to buy another one in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I'll be honest with you, I did that.
They're a business. They're not your friend.
Like, Nintendo sent me the original Switch for free, which I was very grateful
They probably also want to keep the price down.
But they didn't send me the OLED one. I had to go buy that myself. Yeah. And I did. I went and bought it for the upgrade. So, I don't know.
Even though you never use the handheld.
Vincent's saying going above 350 is doom. Yeah, if it's, again, an underpowered platform like Nintendo platforms
if you were saying $400 because you thought it was going to have an OLED, then I might agree with you, but I never thought it would have an OLED.
An OLED, an extra $10 per unit probably for an OLED screen.
Nah, that's not how the accountants see it.
Right. Well, what they can charge, I think, is the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the actual cost isn't that much. See what you guys are saying about it. Scorpio's Finest says OLED all the way. Yeah, once you go LED.
I mean, obviously OLED is better.
But I'm saying for, an 8-inch versus a 7-inch. That's the conundrum.
I mean, it's still 60 inches too small for me. So.
Congrim says OLED with Metroid Prime 4, please. Yeah.
Good news is I have that. You can do that if you have an OLED TV.
You can do what?
You can have Metroid Prime 4 in an OLED because if you have a TV.
But you got to realize, Matt, a lot of people do play their Switch in handheld mode.
Yeah, well, that's their problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, LCD screens really suck. It's hard to believe they even make LCD screens anymore.
No, I mean, tons of cheap devices need LCD screens. Like, you're not going to get an OLED on some, home security panel or something.
Yeah.
It's just that for that stuff.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, for cheap consumer electronics. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Cheap Consumer Electronics Show.
Noxatornitis says the new
CCES.
Noxatornitis says the new Switch might be my first Nintendo system since 1995. Wow. You've really been on I don't know why. Since 1995, you haven't found a single Nintendo game.
Somebody really didn't like the 3D era, I guess.
You were not a fan of the N64 at all. And they're asking us what we think the price is going to be. We've kind of talked about this already, but Neo Geo 2K says $350 is perfect. Include 2 games plus an extra controller for $5.
Yeah.
I mean, I think $350 is probably what it's going to be.
Yeah, $350. I mean, $350 is probably more likely given inflation, but like $350 is.
Except there's no inflation anymore. It's gone now.
Yeah, but
they use it for an excuse though. Still
staying at the same prices though.
Yeah. So anyway,
this week they just removed the ban on raising rent in LA County.
Did they?
Yeah, because obviously rents have been too low for all this time.
Oh no!
So you can raise rents again, and
I've had my rent raised already twice.
Yeah, but
since the pandemic.
Yeah, but now I think whatever the thing that was preventing it from the pandemic is gone.
Oh.
I think there were other.
Didn't keep my landlords from raising our rent.
Well, your landlords sound like monsters.
They are,
from what you've described.
They are.
So.
Yep. Hopefully they're not watching and they're not going to kick me out. I highly doubt they're watching. So anyway, that's the latest information.
Somebody's always paying attention, Mr. Mulder.
That's the latest information we have on Switch 2. By the way, that comes via Bloomberg. We always like to source the information here on GameFace. Next up, we got some disappointing news that we didn't know we were supposed to be disappointed in until we got the news. And that was the latest on the chopping block for Embracer, because it's a complete disaster right now, is Eidos Montreal. And unbeknownst to most people, Eidos Montreal was working on a new Deus Ex game. Mm-hmm. And now that Deus Ex game has been canceled.
I did see a funny thing where some guy responded to this by saying, like, can't the United States and Europe establish things where, protections for workers on this and make sure that this doesn't happen during acquisitions or after acquisitions, And people were like, well, yeah, they could, but A, they won't, and B, that wouldn't have solved this problem, wouldn't have protected this company or this game. And the guy's like, why wouldn't it? Like, it was a whole thing. And finally, someone's like, Montreal's not in the United States.
Hello.
It's like, yes, geography is hard, but.
And that's pretty some simple geography. Noxatornitis explains, growing up, my friend had Nintendo systems. Okay. And look, I did the same thing. Like, my friend would have one system, I'd have the other, and we'd just trade them back and forth so we could play all the games. So I totally get it. But now you're thinking about buying one. So that's something has happened along the way that's had you motivate you to maybe buy one on your own. Matt?
I don't know. I don't think it was taking into account this layoff and a couple other ones that have already happened. I saw earlier in the week, or late last week, over 6,000 people have lost their jobs in the game industry this month.
I know. Just in this year. Yep.
Just in January.
Yeah, it's really bad, dude. It's really, really bad. Here's my question, though. I feel like this may have been a blessing in disguise. I don't know that making another Deus Ex game is that good of an idea.
It probably wouldn't have put them through. But again, Embracer wasn't really interested in that. They were interested in promoting these IPs and recognizable IPs and saying, we got a Deus Ex game coming, we got this coming, we got pleasing fans, building buzz. They expected to no longer own the company anymore by the time this game was going to be released.
Yep.
That was not their concern.
I mean, that's what's happening with all these projects. Like they were just saying, well, we have all these games in development based on all these awesome franchises. Why don't you buy us?
Yep.
And then nobody wanted to buy, and now they're like, well, I guess these games...
They could never afford to bring any of those all to fruition without the extra, at least without selling or with the extra funding they were trying to get from the Saudis.
Yep.
And that's not coming through, so all these things got to go.
I mean, let's be honest.
I will say the Volition guys formed a new company this week called Shapeshifter.
They did.
Where they're hoping to, continue. I'm sure we'll get some kind of Saints Row-alike at some point.
Probably.
Maybe this time with a little more of the Volition magic that was missing from the last one.
Well, the crazy part about it is, people are using all these figures of how many people have been laid off in the industry, and they're totally accurate and real. But the truth of the matter is the vast majority of those layoffs are coming from one company, Embracer. Embracer's horrible financial gamble has really crushed
the industry. That was always the issue, and like the kind of the prediction is like, if this doesn't work, it's thousands of people's lives on the line, basically.
Yeah.
And it's extra funny because Embracer's such a sinister name for something that's doing
the irony.
All you do is picture like an octopus sort of like wrapping its tentacles around.
Gradually squeezing the life out of you. Yeah, I hear you. So I don't know if the new Deus Ex was all that good of an idea. Like, the last one in particular did not do very well at all.
Mankind Divided. Mankind Divided sold okay, but it sold like half of the previous one. So it's like it still sold like 4 or 5 million copies.
Did it sell that much?
It was several million. It wasn't a bomb, but it also wasn't the previous game. It was way down from the previous game
that takes 4 years to make.
Right, and was also, under Square, and Square, nothing's good enough for Square.
Standards are pie in the sky.
This wasn't the top-selling game of all time. It's a failure.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
I like the Deus Ex, the modern, the Atom era Deus Ex stuff. But even I was kind of surprised that Mankind Divided came out.
Yeah.
Human Revolution was a hit, but it's like, that kind of that subgenre is such a hard sell, and like I
think it was a hit because Deus Ex had been gone for a really long time, and people like us had talked up Deus Ex for like 20 years.
I don't think that explains the sales of that magnitude. I think it was popular because it looked cool.
Yeah.
It looked cool. It looked different, and it wasn't like anything. Cyberpunk wasn't very common at the time.
Yeah.
And it was it was. And also, there was a period of time where you go by.
Also, it was pretty good.
It was pretty good, and you go by units sold. There was a period where you could get that game for $5 on every Steam sale. So it was accessible as well. Yeah. And Mankind Divided was a little, it was in a more crowded field. It was a little more gray. I thought
gold. I thought, remember, the whole thing was gold.
It was gold. Yeah.
I remember talking to the art director from that game, and he just talked about, we chose a color for this game. And then as soon as he said that, I was like, gold. He's like, yep. If you look at that trailer we just showed you, there is gold everywhere. It is the weirdest art style ever. And they had their artist there explaining it to me. I'm like, dude, that's crazy.
Well, they did it in the first one, too. The first one is
was it? I don't remember that.
The first one's kind of covered in a urine yellow sheen.
Oh, really?
Throughout. Yellow, orange, gold is sort of the color of those games for some reason.
Pick their winner there. So anyway, a Deus Ex game that you didn't know existed has been canceled. And truth be told, if you did know it existed, there actually are a few stories about it on Sifted. So if you're a sifter, you may have known about it or remembered it. Chances are most of the people watching this or listening to this didn't see that on Sifted. But yeah, I don't think there was going to be a big uproar over this game being canceled. I don't think people would have cared that much if they knew it existed. So
honestly, this subgenre is kind of a loser and almost always is.
Yeah, financially, yeah.
Like, Arcane has made a career out of underperforming with this genre.
The irony of that statement. Made a career out of underperforming in retail. Yep.
Maybe Blade will do it.
So anyway, you think we'll ever get another Deus Ex now?
I imagine someone will pick that IP up at some point.
Like 20 years from now, maybe?
When Embracer does a fire sale later this year or next year, somebody will be like Interplay did. Somebody will pick it up and do something with it. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me if Microsoft picked it up and handed it to Arcane.
Yeah, maybe.
You want to talk about throwing good money after bad?
Exactly.
Like that's basically seems to be what that's there for. So
I would be surprised if there's another Deus Ex. I'll just say it.
I think there will. It may not be like a full immersive sim like thing, but I can see someone doing like a weird visual novel with it. I could see doing like a side-scrolling Metroidvania with it. Like you can do a lot more than just that Adam what's his name story. He never asked for this. After all.
I know.
So you just set something in that universe.
I wonder what. what happens to the team left there, because they laid off, I think it was 97 people.
Yeah, almost 100 people, yeah.
I mean, my guess is that's at least half of that studio.
That sounds right, yeah.
I mean, what happens?
I don't know, slowly wind them down.
Embracer, man. What a nightmare. Okay, moving on to something a little more whimsy and fun. Our old buddy Cliffy B. He hates being called that, and so I use it at every opportunity. I feel like Cliff doesn't really want to make games anymore. I feel like if he wanted to, he would be making games. But he has his hands. He's on a comic book, and now he's got another show coming up on Broadway, and it's awesome. He's like dipping his hands in all this other stuff. But if you want to make games, you got to make games. Like, you can't just roll into a board meeting and sit in a meeting for 30 minutes and then call yourself a game developer. And that's kind of what he's hinted at here. He wants to work on the next Gears game.
I actually don't think that's true.
What's true?
That he wants to work on it.
Really? No. You think he's just saying that to just generate buzz for the comic or something?
No, I think. But people ask him all the time, "Why aren't you making Gears?" Like, that's one of the constant things is, "Why are you making? Like, how come you didn't make Gears 6? When are you going to do Gears 6?" And he's like, a lot of people don't seem to understand he hasn't worked on Gears of War since 3.
Right.
So I think this was in part like because he put up this thing and kind of like a letter, open letter thing on his social media, and to me, it's like he's basically finally kind of publicly saying, it's like, hey, Microsoft, if you want me to consult on Gears 6, I will. And it would probably be good for you if you did, but I'm fine if you don't. Like, it felt like a final sort of like, look, guys, I asked. I put it out there. I said, let's do this. And if they don't do it, what can I do? Leave me alone. Basically.
Well, his quote was...
Because he's already got, he's fine. Financially, he's fine. Yeah. He can do it. If he wanted to make more video games, he would. Like, he has the money to do it. He has the investors to do it. Like, Lawbreakers isn't going to dry up any of his, venture capital funding if he wanted to do more. But he's a successful Broadway producer. He was one of the people that helped bring Hades Town to the forefront, which was a huge. I mean, he has a Tony, for God's sake. Like,
did he win a Tony?
The show won a Tony. As a producer, he theoretically might have gotten one. I don't know if he did.
Yeah. I didn't know that the show had won a Tony.
Show won Best New Musical.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
It was
at the Tonys.
It was a great pick. For a first-time Broadway investor, he picked a big winner.
He hit the gold
And
mine.
now anything he picks gets attention because it's one of the guys who backed Hades Town.
Right,
so he's in a good position there. His comic's been well received. There's no reason for him to get involved. Honestly, at this point, doing work on Gears 6 would be a favor to Microsoft more than him.
Yeah, well, his exact quote was, if they're smart, they'll hire me to work on the game.
He's probably right. Having Cliff out there, if they negotiate to have him out there in the marketing campaign and have him sort of being the front man for PR, that's instant attention.
I agree. I think it would instantly put Gears 6 at the top.
It would do a lot more for Gears 6 than for Cliff.
And even if he did nothing on it, even if he's just there to announce the debut trailer.
Even if he's just like a pretty face.
Even if he's just the front man. Just having him there fronting Gears again would make a difference.
It would be like when James Cameron said that Terminator Dark Fate was his pick for the Terminator 6. He didn't do anything on that. He's just listed as a producer, but it's like, hearing James Cameron say, "Yeah, this one's good," was like fooled a lot of people. So Cliff could do the same here.
Yep. So I kind of assume that Gear 6 is already mostly done. It feels a little late for him to be jumping into the fray. I feel like it's probably halfway finished at least.
I mean, I don't know what else that.
I mean, that's all it doing. Does. I think they jumped in and were helping on Perfect Dark. They did change
their name to kind of not lock themselves in that hard, so we'll see. But it would kind of surprise me if Gear 6 wasn't coming next year or something.
Yeah, if we wouldn't see a trailer at the Game Awards or something this year. It feels like, I don't know, he's getting in a little late on this.
I mean, right now it seems like Microsoft is really emphasizing the stuff that is not Halo, Gears, or Forza because they want to show hey, look, things that aren't those 3 games are coming out this year.
Yeah.
Which is one reason I think maybe we didn't see a Forza Horizon 2 or Forza Horizon 6.
Because it's a running joke at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I agree.
Even though I would welcome Forza. I mean, I'm super excited
I'm ready for more,
Horizon.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that Deus Ex story was broken by Jason Schreier at Bloomberg. I want to make sure, again, that we source people who break stories. So, I feel like Gear 6 it's too late for Cliff to save it, but it's not too late for them to just sign him on as a quote-unquote consultant.
Right. That might be smart. But it's also what are you going to do as a consultant for Gears? It's yeah, that gun should have a chainsaw on it too.
Everything should have a chainsaw.
Like Gears is sort of a solved equation. You just got to come up with something that's a story worth telling in a, I don't know, maybe it means like multiplayer stuff more, because that is where he excels. It's, I don't know, I just think I don't think like Gears needed like a revamp or like it was a broken game or anything. I just think it needed to cool off for a while.
Raujin Z reminds us that they need to wrap up Kate's story first, and he thinks that they should do it before they bring in Cliff. I don't think Kate is terrible. I don't think the story going on right now is terrible.
I just don't think the story is very interesting. It has nothing to do with her. It's just like, okay, sure. The thing about, I do think it might be worth, not Gears 6, but if you want to do Gears 6 kind of completes the second trilogy, and you want to start from somewhere new in another, after that, like that would be a good time to bring Cliff in as more of a brain for
I don't think you bring him in now to have him actually do anything on the game. I think you bring him in just to be the face.
Yeah, as an endorsement.
And then maybe the next game he actually has some creative input on it, but for now, like just having him,
at least bring him in and be like, okay, we're going to work on Gears 7 now. Like, what are your ideas? As the person who kind of originated this, what are your ideas about where to go with it?
Yeah.
You could at least hear him.
Yeah. So we'll see. Cliff, again, like, Matt and I know him outside of the industry. Like, I'm friends with him on Facebook. And if you're friends with him on Facebook, he's just like some other dude on Facebook. He posts every day, random stuff.
Yeah, like I know he has that kind of persona that people perceive, and he did have that kind of public-facing persona of like kind of the obnoxious bro, thinks he's awesome, and he's just like
he's really not like that at all.
He really isn't like that.
He's a really good guy.
I have absolutely no tolerance in real life for people who are like that, and Cliff is not like that at all.
Yeah, he's a really good dude.
He's a good dude. He's lived a life. He's learned his lessons. I always will tell the story of seeing him right after Boss Key started a collapse. It was a Packers party, in fact, and he was so upset. Like he was. You could. I've seen him. I can't count how many times, and he's always, Cliff. He's
jovial.
He's jovial, and he's got a drink in his hand, and he's got his wife with him, and he's hanging out. And he was just sitting on one of those little poofs, like in the middle of the thing, and just sort of like nodding to people. And I was like, "What? Hey man, what's?" He's like, "Man, like it's so hard to be happy right now because he blamed himself for every single person who lost that job and didn't know how they're going to feed their family and all. He is not this weird, arrogant dick that people portray him as. He really isn't.
Yeah, he's a great dude. He actually tried to hire me to work at Boss Key when I was working on SIFTD, and he wanted me to come and be their community manager or whatever, but I had to move to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was like, I can't do it, man. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't move there. And I think he ended up hiring Rohan, who used to work with me at Game Trailers, and he ended up doing it. But anyway, beyond that, Cliff is just a really good dude. His persona in the early days of the Xbox 360 belayed who he really is. He's always been a good guy. It was just kind of this weird, like, dude, huge persona thing that just kind of it wasn't really him ever. It's really weird how that happened, but that's what happens when you go in the gym for a couple years and you show up and you're all jacked up. Yeah. People are like,
and he wanted to be, he wanted to be a star, and he wanted the attention and the fame and like this, and he got it. He found a way to get it.
Yeah.
But I'll always remember coming in because the first year we were here at for G4 was the year they did G4 like a week before we moved down here or something, and that was the year he was on and did the whole thing where he said seriously like 4,000 times. And when one of the first days we were down here, Kevin Pereira had cut together a whole montage of him saying seriously, 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 like set to like techno music, and like sent it out, and he's like, oh my god, and like Cliff thought it was really fun, and like that was like I think the first time I really had any kind of glimpse of Cliff outside of the persona, and it was like. And he thought it was really. He's like, "Oh my god, I was so stupid." Like he had humility about it, and he had a sense of humor about himself about it. And it was like, "Oh, okay, this guy is not this facing persona. This is a real person."
Yep, Cliffy's good people. Don't second guess that for a minute. So anyway, we'll see what happens with Gears 6. My guess is we'll see an announcement of that game before the end of the year, probably released next year. Timing seems to be working out that way. We'll see how it goes. So we've been talking about layoffs already in housekeeping, and the worst of all the layoffs this week was a layoff of 1,900 people at Xbox, as it turned out. It wasn't really just Microsoft. It was really 1,900 people from the games group. The one thing I will say
was about estimates of how many people would end up losing their jobs after that merger was about that.
Oh, it was? I thought it might be less, honestly.
No, the estimate was like, I think it was 20% of like the crossover, like overlap stuff.
Yeah.
And the estimate was something like 2000, 1900 to 2000. It was like I saw an article from when the merger was being litigated, and as one of the downsides that was listed, and the estimate was like within like 50 people. Wow. It was like there's a math to this that is expected, but it doesn't make it suck any less.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but like unfortunately, when one company buys another company, this happens every time.
And I saw people going like, "Oh, that's why the FTC and everyone should be preventing these." They don't give a shit about that.
They don't care about that
That's not why
all.
mergers are prevented.
It's anti-competitive reasons is why they would prevent
antitrust has nothing to do with people losing their jobs.
Yeah. Like, unfortunately, this is capitalism, and most states are at-will states, meaning that they can just lay you off. They don't even need a reason. They don't have to give you a reason. You can just come to work one day,
I assume
we don't want you here anymore.
But I assume you're getting into the physical release section.
The physical release section?
A lot of the people that were let go were basically from the department that basically makes the physical games.
Manufacturing.
Yeah, that I
actually did not know that.
Watch Dogs, all that. Like the I don't remember exact numbers, but it was basically like the number of people let go from that section of the workflow implies that Microsoft might be pulling back on physical copies of things.
So anyway, we're going to talk about the game here in a little bit, but I'll just be honest with you, Matt. I was trying to find physical copy of like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and there was none in Los Angeles. None.
I didn't think they were making any.
They are. They did make them, and there was none. I went to 3 different Best Buys. This is all on Friday night. I went to 3 different Best Buys. I went to 2 different Targets. And that was it. Yeah, I went to 5 stores.
There's actually not many stores that carry games anymore.
There aren't that many. And all the game stores had closed. Dude, they didn't have it at GameStop at the mall.
GameStop never gets anything anymore.
I couldn't believe it.
I went to get Midnight Suns like 4 days after it came out to give people for Christmas. No, I had to go to the one down like on Western. Like it was.
They're like,
they didn't have any copies of it.
They told me they're like, well, when does this come out? I'm like, it came out today. And they're like, well, they look in their computers, like, oh, copies are coming in on the 31st. I'm like, what? I could not find a physical copy of the game. I just ended up buying the digital
version. Because it's not worth
version.
Paying for the extra shipping speed.
Yeah.
Because no one buys physical games in stores anymore.
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked.
The other game that's happening too, by the way, is another code.
Oh, really? That Recollection for Switch?
That thing, the physical copies, they underproduced it hugely, and they came back on Amazon for a day or so, but they were gone from Amazon in like an hour.
Wow.
So if you can find a copy of a physical copy of the Another Code Recollection, pick it up because that thing's going to be worth something.
Don't open it.
Yeah, don't open it. Yeah, it's going to be worth something.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those collector's things when people are trying to build a complete Switch collection like 10 years from now. They're going to be charging $300 for that.
You're probably right. That's a good point.
That's your financial tip for the day.
So anyway, Xbox laid off 1,900 employees, and we're not scoffing at it or saying it's not a big deal, but it is just how business works, unfortunately, because what happens is
y'all gotta unionize.
That's part of it.
Developers gotta unionize.
But unions can't stop layoffs.
They can't stop this, but they could help make things. Also,
make it better.
They make it better. Also, almost no one in a union got laid off in this.
Really?
And earlier they were saying no one from a union, but then later there were some people. I can't remember the union name. GWA, I think it was.
Game Workers
Association or Alliance or something. Yeah. They were claiming no GWA members got laid off in the Microsoft layoff, and then a couple people who were part of it claimed that they were laid off. So there's some dispute on that.
I mean, look,
but the vast majority were not union.
If you have a mixed staff, union and non-union, you're going to err towards laying off the people who aren't union because you don't want to deal with the hassle. Deal with the union. Yeah. Like eventually the union's going to fold. You're going to be able to lay the people off anyway, but you're going to have to go through negotiations and process with the union, and it's just easier to just lay off the people who aren't in the union. I can totally see that happening.
Yep.
But again, what happens when you merge these companies is that like your company has an HR department. This company that just bought you already has an HR department as well. They're going to get rid of your HR department. They're going to get rid of your marketing department. They're going to get rid of your maintenance workers. All those redundant jobs, they're going to get wiped away. And 9 times out of 10, they don't keep the person who's coming with the new company. No matter how much of a rock star they are, they keep their people. So unfortunately, we knew this was coming. I'll be honest. 1,900 seemed. I didn't expect that many. I thought it'd be like 1,000 max. So I was a little shocked to see that it was almost double what I thought it was going to be.
I mean, it is a big company.
It is, but not surprised that it happened at all. Unfortunately, this is just capitalism, people. I hate to say it. It just is. It's the way it works. And again,
with very little mitigation.
Yeah, and you have as workers have like no rights unless you're in a union. You're an at-will employee, meaning that again, you can come to work. They can tell you to go home forever, and they don't have to tell you why.
Nope.
They don't have to give you or even give you a reason. They're just like, get out. We don't want you here anymore. And that's it. So, unfortunately, one of the downsides of capitalism is stuff like this. I would say, like, I hope that people land on their feet. But, Matt, there's no jobs for all these people to land on their feet.
Well, there's definitely not 6,000 jobs out there.
I just wonder what's going to happen to these people. Are they going to start working just in regular software development?
A lot of developers do that, yeah. I know several people, some of them from Ubisoft, when they couldn't take it anymore at the Ubisoft places they were at, and they quit, and they couldn't find another game dev job in Montreal or Toronto, so they just started working in databases. They started doing programming for banking software or whatever.
And the truth is, they'll make more money.
Well, they did make more money, and it was, but I mean, they were bored. But like eventually. Yeah. And eventually, like, someone would come along, like one of their previous coworkers would come along. They have either they'd started a needy developer, and they hey, I want you to come work on that. They go do that.
Yeah.
So basically, they go down to the programming of boring software for a while, because you can do either. But like, obviously, their passion is video games. And they want to do that. They wouldn't be putting up with all this bullshit if they weren't. So a lot. That's kind of what happened. It's sort of like going back down to the minor leagues.
Yeah. Well, but again, in most cases, you make more money working in the other sectors of their industry.
Or if not, then it's not going away.
Yes.
That's the big thing.
It's stable, reliable.
Yeah.
You don't have a project, and when it ends every 3 years, you're like probably going to get laid off.
Although, to be fair, a lot of people probably thought the same about working at Activision or Microsoft.
That's true.
So, I mean, you talk about things that aren't going to fail.
Yeah. And it's not that they did fail.
And again, if the merger, when a merger like that happens, and you're in one of those, there's clearly tons of people did get taken by surprise. Like, I think a lot of the stuff on Microsoft's side was not expected.
Yeah.
But like, if you're in like HR or whatever in Activision, you're like, the instant that conversation starts happening, you should start
send your resumes out.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, we, as always,
and I know how it feels. Like that was what happened to G4.
I mean, I was in San Francisco when the .com bubble popped.
Yeah.
I had moved all the way out to San Francisco.
I went through it twice. We went through Tech TV being bought by Comcast, and then when Comcast and NBC Universal merged, G4 didn't survive it.
Yeah, that .com bubble pop in San Francisco. That is one of those moments in time that it sucked because I was a part of it, but I'm also very shocked that I was there to see it. Like, just being in San Francisco in 2000, like, I don't think there'll ever be a time like that again anywhere.
Yeah, that was remarkable.
Where there was just billions of dollars flooding that city for the dumbest ideas ever. And it was just a party.
Are you saying pets.com was a bad idea?
That was actually one of the good ones. But there were not enough pets.com.
Didn't survive. Like, it was amazing. It was a crazy time.
It really was. But again, they laid off at CNET. They laid off half of the freaking staff.
I had a bunch of friends who were in tech and all that stuff. One of my friends was in tech. He got a job it was a company that invented thumbprint scanner. Like, anything you'd use like a fingerprint scanner for security, he helped invent that. Like, he was right out of college, right when we got out of college. And he was there for like 20 years, and they laid him off like 6 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm like, he'd been sales for them forever. And he's like, I don't know how to apply for a job anymore. Like, they changed that since I last did it. And like, but I remember at the time, all my friends they were all MSSC certified, and they were all like, they were working in tech things and consulting things and network databases and da-da-da-da-da. And I was, of course, working in retail. And suddenly all that, as I would go see them and hang out with them and go to parties and stuff, you'd see like they're showing up. Some of them are showing up in less fancy like suit jackets and stuff, and you're starting to see the effect of things. And then like in late 2000, I got the job at Tech TV, and they're like, "How did you get a job in tech this year?" And I'm like,
no one's hiring.
Like, we've been kind of making fun of you for like working like menial jobs forever, and now I'm like, well, I didn't want that until I got it, and I got it. But I'm like, also, it's not a tech job; it's a TV job.
Yeah.
And believe me,
difference.
There was money in covering the collapse of the .com. But like Tech TV kind of blew up.
It did.
Because Paul Allen bought them, and all of a sudden that was like your story. That was some of the best tech reporting in the world.
It was. I mean, it was an entire technology TV station.
9 hours of live TV, all about technology.
It's really crazy.
Over and over and over and over again.
I heard that over and over again.
Every single digital camera you can think of.
At CNET, it was there wasn't even any discussions. Like, it was just last in, you're out.
Yeah.
So they just basically, what were the last? We need to cut 50%. Who were the last 50% of people who were hired? They're out. And it was just an assembly line of people getting laid off inside CNET. Just literally a line of like 800 people standing with their laptops and all the stuff that CNET had given them to turn in, sign their paperwork, and leave. Nobody talked to you. Nobody said, gee, y'all shucks, you did a great job. Sorry we had to lay you off. They're just like, y'all are gone. And take all your stuff that we gave you and give it back to us. And that was it. That's all there was to it.
Farrell says it's weird that I remember pets.com existed, but not what it did. It was literally a pet supply delivery company.
Yeah.
You would order something pet related and they delivered. It was literally chewy.com.
Yeah,
it's like there's like 5 pets.coms right now, but at the time, no one understood why you'd want to do that.
There's so many things that are way ahead of their time.
And they didn't have a financial model to deal with the cost of transporting it from here to there.
Right,
that
the
was
delivery parts, yeah. So anyway, as always, best of luck to those affected. I do feel like for a lot of the people who lost their jobs, they're going to struggle to find jobs in games again. They just are. There just aren't the jobs out there right now. So hopefully people start staffing up and some of these people get hired again. And if not, they find something else that they will enjoy doing. It wouldn't be a housekeeping for the last 12 months if we didn't talk about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And after next week, it will be the last time we probably talk about it until it
Suicide
folds.
Squad kill this game already.
Pretty much. But again, they've managed to make news for another week. And not for...
Is it going to help them in the sales?
Probably not. So probably
Although they've managed to keep reviews down, so...
No reviews yet.
Yeah, because they didn't send anybody codes.
Yeah.
IGN's not getting one at all.
Why?
Because of that preview where they said we don't like it.
Oh.
Like there's everyone is getting their codes late, but they were IGN says they were told you're not getting codes at all.
You can't do that. But dude, Warner Brothers,
not building confidence. Warner Brothers do that.
The crazy part about Warner Brothers is their head of PR is awesome, but she is a bulldog. And like, it's so weird. You talk to her, she's like the nicest person you ever talked to, but she's cutthroat. Like, she is one of the few I don't want to single her out because she is representing a company. Warner Brothers is one of the few publishers that is never willing to send us review code, ever. Even after I had put their games on television for 12 straight years, as soon as I left to do something on my own, they were like, nope, sorry. I even ran into them at Pactor's party and tried to talk to them. And I was like, look, like, do you remember all the stuff that I did for you guys? They're like, yeah, but like, that's not how this industry works, Shane. They're like, what can you do for us now?
That's not how Warner Brothers works.
Right. And I said to her, I'm like, well, I'm just going to tell you.
You could bring me into the meetings when you're making your DC movies. I would have made you an extra $100 million by not hiring Zack Snyder. How about that?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to go too far on that. But anyway.
That's obviously not their...
Warner Brothers is hard to work with.
Warner Brothers has a lot of bad decisions coming from very high up on the way down. And that applies to all their departments.
It's true. Yep.
So, who knows?
So anyway, back to Suicide Squad, the game. This week, if you had paid an extra, was it $30 like everyone else?
Something like that. It was $100 for the...
So if you pay the extra $30, you get to play the game 3 days early, but...
Except...
Unless it's a game being published by Warner Brothers. There was a bug in the beta, or the early access, that finished the game automatically. It literally, you started the game, and it just finished on its own.
It's amazing.
It really is. It's almost like somebody on the inside was like engineering it or something. It's really bizarre. But anyway, so the early access period that people had paid a bunch of money for, is it working now? Like finally today, I think it started working, or yesterday?
I think for the consoles, I think it went up late yesterday.
Yeah. So it is
but for
finally...
PC, I got it on PC, and that doesn't go live. It didn't go live until 10 this morning, and I didn't have time to play it, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that this is Rocksteady that's been dragged into this debacle, but...
Well, they made it.
They did make it, but I do wonder how much influence there was from outside sources on this.
I don't know, like...
I hope there was a lot. Because I want to give Rocksteady the benefit of the doubt.
It just doesn't... Like, imagine being shown this game in, like, 2015 and being told this is Rocksteady's next game.
Yeah.
And other than the license, you're kind of like, what?
Well, back in 2015, people might be like, that looks cool. But now that we've played so many games as a service...
Sure,
yeah.
But it's just like, yeah.
So
there's little things where it's like there was a cutscene I saw of a pivotal moment where Harley shoots her revolver, and she shoots her revolver twice, in a big scene, and there's everything goes slow-mo and heightened and everything, and you hear the shell casings
hitting the ground
twice. It's a revolver. Revolvers do not eject shell casings. What are you doing?
What are they doing? Why? Again, the Duck Consulting Agency. And then on top of it all, they announced the first DLC character for the game, and that is Joker, who is dead.
Well, he's an Elseworlds Joker. The big question continually is, why is this set in the Arkhamverse?
Well, I don't know.
Why did they? And the big thing the last day or so has been people complaining about how this is Kevin Conroy's last performance as Batman, and the scene with Batman is kind of awful. And I don't really. I mean, it's not like they.
Danny T. Monahan says easiest speedrun ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be a hard one to beat. But it's like obviously they did not record Kevin Conroy's lines knowing this was the last time he was ever gonna play Batman. That's not a useful criticism of the game. Yeah. The thing is, why is this how you send that version of Batman off? Why is you go through all this stuff in 5 games, really, if you count Blackgate, you go through all this stuff with this version of Batman, this character. And this is how that character winds up? This is how you wanted to close that down? And I know there's things that happen near the end that sort of mitigate some stuff, but if you're already going to use an Elseworlds Joker to avoid bringing Joker back, how many characters they're bringing back to life here? And then they have to retcon the thing where the other version of Deadshot was an imposter and this guy was in jail the whole time. But Deadshot, if you count Origins, Deadshot has the imposter Deadshot has been being Deadshot for 20 years. At the very least, they're just Deadshot 1 and 2, right? It's why not just set this in another universe where you don't have to worry about that? Also, how does this Harley equate to the one that was in the Arkham games, who was basically a moron?
I know, I don't know. It
doesn't work.
It really doesn't. It makes no sense. But I will say this, Matt. I have a morbid curiosity for this game. I actually can't wait to play it.
Well...
just to see what it ultimately is after all the talk, after how many times we've talked about it here on GameFace.
It's just Borderlands with the DC license.
Yeah, it does seem that way. But we'll be talking about this on next week's episode. AJ the Legend asks, did you see the commercial for the game yet? It's actually pretty funny. There's a line in it where one person goes dibs on Batman. All right. But do you don't get to play as Batman, do you?
No.
You're fighting Batman.
Yeah. He means dibs on Batman means one of the Suicide Squad people says that to kill because they get dibs on killing him.
I thought it was a human player playing the game saying I got dibs on Batman.
I think it's either Harley or Boomerang says.
Gotcha. I haven't seen the commercial. So
the only thing I saw with Boomerang is that apparently after they kill Flash, he pisses on his corpse.
Oh,
because that's how edgy we are in this game.
That's definitely edgy.
And it's there's other people trying to defend this thing by saying whoa, how shocked everyone is that you kill the Justice League in a game called Kill the Justice League. It's there's something to be said for execution, kids.
Yeah.
You can do this concept and not be embarrassing while you're doing it, and a lot of this is just embarrassing.
Well, not much longer.
Which is weird because I was thinking early on, I'm well, even if I don't like the game, the story will probably be pretty good because the DC games generally have a pretty solid story that they bring in people from the animation team and stuff. This just looks thoroughly unpleasant to me. The clips I've seen. King Shark is funny. King Shark. There was one thing with them where they're being transported in, strapped to gurneys or whatever, and for some reason Deadshot says Captain Boomerang, you kangaroo face ass looking face or something, and King Shark goes, because you're from Australia, and I'm okay, that's fun.
All right,
that's pretty good.
Funny. All right,
but
I hope there's more of that.
It's so weird, and this you've never seen the Justice League before, and apparently this is their first mission in this universe, and they fucked it up this badly. It's such an odd choice to make this game and take 8 years to make. There's a point where the point where you could say if you could have gotten this out in 2017, even 2018, when the Suicide Squad
or when games as a service were just starting to ignite.
I'm talking more. I don't care about the games as a service thing. I mean that's been happening for as long as whatever, and it's going to continue happening until people learn their fucking lesson on it. I'm saying that Suicide Squad is an irrelevant fucking license right now.
It is.
Nobody gives a shit about anyone in this except Harley.
Yeah.
And that's only because of Suicide Squad from 2016. That movie was 8 years ago.
That's hard to believe, actually. It's been 8 years.
They've been working on this game almost since that movie came out.
You're right, yeah.
And it's if you could get this out in 2017, 2018, when everybody was dressing as Harley Quinn for Halloween and shit, it would have felt more like you were striking while the anvil was iron's hot, right? This just feels like who's still doing? I mean, there've been 2 Suicide Squad movies since and like it's not like I dislike the James Gunn one, but it's like it just feels like that was a past era. It feels like that's not the time for it.
Yep.
And it certainly feels like why do I want to use a minigun when I'm a giant shark?
I hope I can just bite people's heads off because that's what I'm going to do.
It looks like a finishing thing or something, maybe, but most of the gameplay is shooting things.
Yeah, I know. A shark with a gun. Yep. Well, we did get some news this week, moving on, from CD Projekt Red. And at first the news was that CD Projekt Red is considering multiplayer for the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. Which I was like, why?
Didn't we try that before and we canceled it?
Yeah, I'm just like, why? But then really the big news that came out of it was that CD Projekt Red also shared that The Witcher 4, which is not going to be called The Witcher 4, it doesn't sound like, but the next Witcher game is going into full production here in like the next month with 400 people. Is that enough, Matt, to make the next Witcher? 400 people?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a Ubisoft team.
Yeah, it's a Naughty Dog team generally when it's all said and done.
Give them 3-4 years, and there you go.
You think? I bet you it takes longer than that.
It might.
Although full production, maybe not. They've already done all the pre-production.
Full production means you're just staffing full up to just start churning it out. Yeah. So I would say it's 3 years out.
Yeah, you may be right, actually. That sounds about right. So 2027, maybe the end of 2027?
I'm going to guess this is a tail end of the generation, maybe even early launch.
Of the next one?
Hybrid.
Yeah.
PS5, PS6.
Mm-hmm. Still a lot of mystery around the game. All we know so far is that like Geralt is not going to be the main character.
Geralt will not be the playable player character, no.
But he's the voice actor's still working on it or something.
Yeah,
so he's still involved.
He'll be in
some
it.
way.
I'm sure he'll be in it.
How weird to just rub elbows with him and not play as him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the universe is bigger than that.
Yeah. So it definitely is. I mean,
people,
the show is.
And the one thing, I mean, people love Geralt. I mean, obviously these are the trilogy is about him. Everybody loves Geralt. But if there's one thing I see requested is sort of beyond the scope of what these games did, is that people want to make their own Witcher.
Yeah.
And you make people make their own Witcher. Cool. Like that's really the last thing left to do here.
Yeah.
And I imagine they're going to do BioWare style. You make your own Witcher, and it's just that Witcher will just slot into whatever the character is, kind of like Shepard style. Mm-hmm. That would be how I'd approach it anyway. And I'm sure you'll run into Geralt and a bunch of the people that are in this thing,
Netflix is going to be pissed off.
Netflix doesn't.
Like, how can we make another season on the show if the game is like create your own character?
Well, Netflix, that show will be long gone.
It will, yeah. So. I was just making a joke. A bad one, but a joke.
And remember, the Netflix thing is a book license, not the game.
Oh, right. That's right. Which makes a big difference.
Two separate things.
Yep. It makes a big difference, for sure.
It's interesting to me that it's interesting to see when the book license hits and when the game, because the game stuff, the rights of the game stuff is different. And all the board games use the video game license. Mm-hmm. And all the other stuff uses the books.
Interesting. Well, I'll say this. It's good that we now know that CD Projekt Red is going to be able to develop 2 games at once.
Yeah.
Because before now, that hasn't been the case. So
yeah, this is a big expansion for them.
Yeah, I mean, the studio is definitely like building up and building out to be able to work on multiple games at once. So, we get this in 2027. I don't think Cyberpunk Orion or whatever the hell it's called is going to be all that far behind.
No, I think they might end up being like a year or 2 apart.
Yeah,
at most.
Which is good. We want more output from CD Projekt Red.
Yeah, although it'd also be good if they could stagger it so we're getting a CD Projekt Red game like every 2 years.
That would be perfect. Maybe that's the plan.
Maybe, I don't know.
But
I would guess maybe The Witcher might take less time than Cyberpunk, just in the sense that The Witcher is again kind of a solved equation. Mm-hmm. Like what The Witcher, you're making The Witcher 3 again.
Well, there's definitely not going to be multiplayer in The Witcher 4.
No,
I would hope not, but.
They've talked about it.
They have.
And at most, I would say that should be like 2-player co-op.
Yeah.
I don't have any interest
instead of doing something like they did with Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I can understand why Cyberpunk sort of tempts you into doing some kind of competitive multiplayer thing. Mm-hmm. But again, I don't...
All the gadgets and everything.
There's an element that's just like, you know what, guys? You're doing just fine without that. Why not just focus on your strength?
Yeah.
I'd much rather them do that. It's sort of like Naughty Dog. It's like... You clearly don't need multiplayer to bring people in to sell 10, 20 million copies of this thing.
Yeah.
So why risk? Why get on that high wire?
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. So anyway, CD Projekt Red kicking things into full gear to bring us more video games that we can't wait to play. And then finally, our last topic for today's housekeeping is something that I've been hoping for a really long time. It is finally coming to fruition. I have no idea why it took so long, but finally, the platform holders are taking on cheating in Call of Duty. I've talked about cheating in Call of Duty several times here on GameFace. As someone who plays Call of Duty multiplayer, it drives me bonkers. I have people that will like message me and they'll be like, I play all the time, I don't see any cheating. You don't know what you're looking for if you're not seeing any cheating in the game. Obviously, it's a problem if the console manufacturers are trying to stop it.
I like it when you see people post clips of like, how did I miss that guy? And it's clearly like their aimbot didn't work right.
Yeah.
And because they're tracking somebody through a wall and suddenly it just misses them.
They're wall hack.
And it's like, you are so flipped around in your head that you're literally posting a video mad that your cheat bot didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know how you catch cheaters while you're playing, watch the kill cams. If all of a sudden the player in the kill cam spins around and starts sprinting in your direction and shoots you, and there's no radar, and he doesn't have a heartbeat sensor, he's cheating. He's using wall hacks to see through the walls, and he can see you coming even though you're separated by like 10 walls. If you find somebody who has their aim like off in the sky and all of a sudden it snaps to your head and shoots you in the head, they're using an aim bot. It's not that hard to spot. It's obvious. Now, when I say it's prevalent, when I say prevalent, I mean I catch, if I play for an hour, I'll catch maybe one person cheating. So that's how prevalent it is. It's not like every match, everybody that's playing is cheating. But if you know what to look for...
Although on PC, it is
almost everybody.
More, yeah.
And I have turned off cross-platform play in this game to get away from the PC players. So anyway, what's happened is PlayStation is basically disabling the technology that these devices are using. Basically, it's this device called the Cronus Zen. It's a little dongle that plugs into your USB port and goes between the controller and the console. And basically, it gives you wall hacks, it gives you aimbots, it gives you everything you need to cheat.
I love the idea that people spend money to do this.
Yeah.
Like you bought a device specifically to cheat in Call of Duty.
I talked to one of my nephews over the holidays, and he's a huge Fortnite player. And he was talking about aimbots. He's 9 years old. And I'm like, why are you cheating? And he's like, because I want to win, and I want to be good. And I'm like, but you're not good.
Yeah, it's not being good.
It's not good. I'm like, if you have aspirations to someday actually be like into esports or whatever, you're a fraud. You're going to get exposed. He couldn't even compute it. He's just like, but when I go to school the next day, everybody's like, you killed me 15 times. Like, that's all he cares about.
And do you tell them that you cheated?
He doesn't tell them, no.
Well, then he knows somewhere in there, doesn't he?
Right. So anyway, like, even 9-year-olds are using aimbots and wall hacks in shooters online. So it's a huge problem. This always had to come from PlayStation. There's only so much you can do with the code in the game to stop devices from cheating.
The cheating dongle.
Yeah.
It has to be stopped at the hardware level.
At the hardware level. And finally, PlayStation has done it. I hope to God Xbox does it as well.
Cheating dongle is also the name of my new thrash band.
It's not a bad name at all. So anyway, I can't say I don't think they've actually instituted it yet, and it's in a firmware update, and like it won't be mandatory for like another month and a half. And when that happens, hopefully we can see a change inside the game. Hopefully, this technology works for all the other shooters on PlayStation 5 as well, so people can't use dongles and cheats and hacks for that either. But thank you, PlayStation, for finally somebody taking control of this situation. It is really annoying if you're into playing Call of Duty multiplayer. So I'm glad to see the PlayStation stepped up to be the one to finally solve this problem, hopefully permanently. But they talked to the dudes at Cronus Zen, and they're like, it may take us 24 hours, it may take us 48 hours, it may take us 48 months, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to work around it and figure out how to make it work again. It's just like, God, just
money to be made.
Right. If people didn't buy it, they wouldn't make it. That's the problem. There's a market for it. So anyway, I will say for the millionth time, if you're someone who's using cheats in games, why? It's doing you no good. Like, I get my nephew's excuse on some angle where he's like, oh, I was playing Fortnite with my buddies last night, and now I get to go to school tomorrow, and they could all say, oh, you kicked my ass. Like, at least that makes sense. But if you're just like an adult who doesn't go to like school every day to brag to his friend, like, why? It's just crazy.
I mean, part of it's imagining pissing someone off like that.
Maybe. Like seeing me angry. Yeah, they're like, oh, that's what I wanted. It goes back to what I was saying to start this show. like just the overall just malaise of the general population anymore. Negative, make somebody angry. I get schadenfreude from you. It's just awful. So anyway, kudos to PlayStation for taking that big step. I hope Xbox follows suit. And I hope, most importantly, that as these cheat devices start figuring out ways to work around it, that the hardware manufacturers keep on it and they keep making sure that they can't circumvent the firmware that they've installed on everyone's console. So, be interesting to see. I'm just glad that finally somebody is doing something about it as a big Call of Duty player. Hail to Starscream says, Cronus will absolutely circumvent this. They just use the DualSense as a bridge to the console. It's pretty much impossible to block that. Well, they did, so it's not impossible.
Well, I think he means block it permanently.
Like eventually they'll figure out a way around it again.
Yeah, you just change the way it communicates, and I mean, then Sony can change that. It's just to be an arms race.
I think the idea though is that you make it so it works, it doesn't work, it works, it doesn't work, it works, so that people don't want to buy it.
Right.
Because they're like, what if they do solve it permanently?
Right. Well, I think what will happen is that Kronos will start making versions that can be firmware updated.
Maybe. Yeah. A dongle, you plug it in your PC.
Stick a mini SD card slot in it, and you just upgrade the firmware. Right. I think that's your next move there.
Yep. Yep. JM Rain says, I don't hate cheats in single-player games. I love the power fantasy. Me either. I have no problem with cheats, man. Like, dude, you want to play with all unlimited ammo, all rocket launch, I don't care. You're playing single-player. It's when you're playing against me online that I have the problem. And to hell to Starscream's point, yeah, they'll circumvent it, and then I hope PlayStation borks it again, and they end up in this loop where people stop buying it, and Cronus eventually is like, this isn't worth it anymore, and it goes away. That's best case scenario. But we'll see. So anyway, just very happy that at least one of the console manufacturers cares enough to try to make a difference, at least for a little bit. We'll see how it goes. And with that, we're ready to get into the bulk of GameFace episode 374. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. Valentine's Day is coming up quick, people. And if you'd like to mix up some drinks for your significant other for Valentine's Day, LS Cream is a great option for people who aren't big drinkers. Because as I've mentioned in the last couple of weeks, if you mix it in with like hot chocolate or a warm drink, you hardly even taste that there's any liquor in there. So to me, LS Cream is also a great liqueur for people who aren't huge drinkers because it's kind of sweet. It kind of masks very easy in sweet drinks. And so for Valentine's Day, your significant other maybe wants to get loose and normally they don't. I think LS Cream is an excellent option there. Again, go to creamls.com/sifted. There are drink recipes there where you can learn how to make some of the crazy drinks that you just saw in the ad. And imagine if before your date, you pick up your date or you go over there and you make these awesome drinks just to get the night started for Valentine's Day. Winner, winner. So again, go to creamls.com/sifted. Try to use that URL if you can. There's a store locator there. As I said, awesome drink recipes to make an awesome drink that will impress your significant other. Head over there, get yourself a bottle. You can find it online there, or there's a store locator. Just plug in your zip code. It'll tell you where you can go locally to get it if you're in a bind, if it's February 13th. You don't have time to wait for shipping. Head to creamls.com/sifted. Everything you need is there to get yourself a bottle of LS Cream. And with that, it's time to kick off the show proper. We got two big games to discuss in today's show. And I'll be honest, Matt, I struggled to figure out which one to put first. So we have Tekken 8, and then we have Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And Tekken 8's the answer. Obviously, you can look at the sales in Europe for opening weekend. It outsold the game by a bunch. But I do think maybe that for our audience, it's Like a Dragon.
I don't know. Like, Tekken has its audience.
Yeah, I chose Tekken. And I think I didn't know which one I was going to choose. And then I saw the sales. And Tekken, by the way, Matt, sold double what Street Fighter 6 did in its opening few days in the UK or whatever.
Well, to be fair, Tekken 7 was very well received, and Street Fighter 5 was not.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think word of mouth had to spread for 6 a little bit more than... I mean, Tekken 8 was about as sure bet as you get in fighting games.
Yeah.
Like, it's coming off the back of a streak, basically. Like, 6 was good, 7 was great, and 8 was just Harada being like, yeah, we got it. We're good. Like, come on. So there was no doubts. Like, Street Fighter 6, I think people needed to be reassured, waiting for reviews, that kind of thing. So that doesn't surprise me. Also, Tekken seems to have figured out a similar thing as Mortal Kombat about how to appeal to people who want the flash and the offline content.
Well, the one thing I'd say about Tekken as a franchise in general is it's one of those franchises where if you don't play a lot of fighting games, you can button mash and do cool shit.
Yeah, well, as long as you're up against someone else who's also
doing the same thing.
Yeah, doing the
right.
same thing.
If you're playing against somebody who knows what they're doing.
But there's tons of people that just, I know people who have never touched a fighting game seriously who played Tekken back in the day and play. It's one of the big, if there's a 3D fighter that's like the casual 3D fighter, it's Tekken.
It's Tekken.
No, but it's
PlayStation
also
1. Everybody I knew that had a PlayStation 1 had Tekken.
Yeah, but it's also the fighting game that the 3D fighter that you can play super intricately. So it serves both audiences to some degree.
Yeah.
I will say this, I didn't really realize it until I started looking at my collection. I actually do not have Tekken 1 through 5.
Really?
At all. Like, I don't like Tekken. Tekken is not, of all the major fighting games, Tekken's the one that I always left me kind of cold.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up before we get into the discussion, because it'll frame things a little bit for people. Now, I am kind of ambivalent to Tekken. Like, I've liked it at times. I've not liked it at times. I do think it's a good party game fighter. Because if you just put it on your TV at a party, people can pick up the controller and they just start mashing it and crazy stuff happens. And if you have a whole party of casual people who don't know how to play Tekken, they love it. Because they're both doing crazy stuff. The fights go back and forth. It's when you start playing against people who are good at this game where things change. But let's talk about
There are very few fighting games with a more sharp divide between knows what they're doing and casual player.
Yeah, this one for sure.
Like there are a lot of fighting games, even when I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm very good at. That there are times when I've almost lost a round or so to someone who was just sort of trying to figure it out. That doesn't happen in Tekken.
Yeah.
If you know how to play Tekken, you will never lose to someone who doesn't know how to play Tekken.
You will destroy people who are not as good as you.
It simply doesn't happen. Tekken is one of the most experienced and skill-based fighters in the genre.
Yeah.
Like, it does not know. And my problem with it now is that I never liked it very much back in the day. I found it stiff and sort of overly aggressive and kind of one note in that regard, especially in comparison to Virtua Fighter, which is my preferred poison. Whoops, Virtua Fighter doesn't really exist anymore.
Me too. That's my favorite 3D fighter.
But and now playing Tekken 8, it's just like I am short like 30 years of experience on the, because it's like if you don't, I know who half the characters are. Maybe I don't know what they do. I don't, and you have to know everything. You have to know the matchups. You have to know to play online effectively in any way, you have to know the matchups. You have to know what each character can do, what their combos might be, what they might open with, who has what the 10 frame what the 10 frame jab can counter, what the 15 frame jab hit can counter. Like, you need to. That's one of the first things you memorize on a character in Tekken is your 10 frame jabs and your 15 frame counter attacks, and what you can do equally same frame. I think it was 11 frame and 14 frame low attacks, because those are what your bread and butter for counter. But then you have to know the plus frames or the negative frames on each other character, and when you block their stuff,
There's
one of the most
33 characters.
It's one of the most
already
technical
in Tekken
games in the world.
Yeah,
like and
learning
now
that for 33
and even more in
characters.
Tekken 8. Tekken 8 is one of the most technically impressive fighting games I have ever seen.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Let's start rolling in the B-roll here, actually.
And I don't just mean visual. I mean, visually it's great, sure. I mean, that's obvious. But the hitboxes are pristine on like a Dark Souls level. Like, there's been videos I've seen online of people like whiffing or missing or dodging things with literally in-game inches, and like multiple it's phenomenal. Like it calculates everything down to like the hair strand in places. It is a technical achievement that like I feel like people outside of the fighting game kind of pro Tekken community maybe aren't recognizing fully, or maybe they will later, but like like I've never seen anything like this before in some of these close in, like when it zooms in and shows how these like little moves interact with each other, like unbelievable. They knocked this out of the park with this stuff. First
big fighting game launched on Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah.
And it
shows.
If you want to talk about the technical side of it, as far as graphics are concerned, this game's hot as crap as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's easily technically the best looking fighting game I've ever played, for sure. Unreal Engine 5 definitely paid off for this game. But let's talk about the single player stuff before we get into the nitty gritty of the actual combat. As we said, 33 playable characters when you boot this game up. That's insane.
Yeah.
Having to memorize all this stuff Matt talked about for 33 characters is bonkers.
Yeah, and playing against a character you don't know you're at a big disadvantage.
Oh, you have no chance. Against an experienced player, you have no chance.
Actually, I'll say if you want to know if it's an interesting strategic. I mean, the best way to pick your character in this game is to pick who you think looks cool.
Yeah.
And you want to stick with. But picking a newer character, one of the new characters, is an advantage early on because people haven't had a chance to memorize everything they can do.
Yeah.
All that said, all the new characters are very execution heavy, which makes them very hard to use for a new player.
Yeah. So, as we said, there's 33 playable characters. Although, Matt, I kind of found the roster to be kind of boring.
I've always found the Tekken roster kind of boring.
I can name 10 people off the top of my head.
Half of them are just anime guys with big jackets.
Yeah. And big collars and big boots and whatever else.
To be fair, you can customize them to look like almost anything.
Yeah.
Like
it's almost like this Victorian era, like, clothing sets that they have.
There's people
so weird.
If you look online, like people have modified them to look like almost any character you can think of in every other franchise. One guy just plays with one of these guys just made up to look almost exactly like Drake. Like real life people, like it's remarkable. Like there's a guy who I think it's Leo, and he's got him dressed like Ash from Pokemon, and it looks exactly like him. It's the customization is amazing.
Well, this is a huge part of it. So you can create your own fighter
thing,
and that with all the crazy costume stuff, you unlock it as you play the game. But you also create this little chibi avatar of yourself that is your representation in a couple other single player modes in the game that are not the big campaign, cinematic, story-driven stuff that you're about to see in the B-roll here. But, Matt, I could very quickly name, 10 Tekken fighters off the top of my head that I'm like, where the hell are they? Ogre, Angel, Anna Williams, Gon Heihachi, some of the big ones.
Well, Heihachi's dead.
I'm
sure that's all DLC. There'll be DLC, but in the initial release is sort of dealing with just who's in the story.
Yeah.
I don't know where Anna is. Anna always shows up later. Yeah. That's almost a tradition in Tekken.
But I finished it.
Right, but later.
It's like DLC?
DLC or an addition later or an unlockable.
I'm guessing all these characters are coming as DLC. My point is that the launch roster was lacking, in my opinion.
Launch roster leans a little too hard on the generic dude who looks like him.
He is a stereotypical character.
They all just big men in jackets punching things.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I know these are beloved characters or whatever, but I don't. To me, one of the things is that when you start the campaign, because there's 3 different major single player story driven things, and it's the campaign.
There's 3 single player campaigns.
The campaign is the full the story of what happens in the King of Iron Fist tournament. 8,
which is what we're seeing now. Yeah.
And then there's the individual character stories, which every single character in the game has their own little 5-match long mini story.
Plot. Yeah.
Some of them are elucidate stuff about what they were doing during the story. Some of them are just gags. It's extra stuff to do if you like this. Characters that don't get highlighted in the main story get to have their own little thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then there's the arcade quest where you use that avatar it showed you making to basically become a pro Tekken tournament player in the Japanese arcade scene, which is a cool little weird little. It's almost like I
liked it more than this, Matt.
Yeah, the tone of that is almost it almost feels like a Yakuza spinoff in the sense that it's all text and everybody's kind of very dramatic. And everything's go fight, win for the honor of Tekken and things like that. So that is completely out of universe. It's literally our world. People play Tekken all the time, and we're gonna have a big dramatic fight. And learn to be the best Tekken player, and that actually does a pretty good job of tutorializing you through how Tekken works if you've never played a Tekken game or haven't played one in a long time.
It teaches you the deep stuff too.
Yeah, and they're all. It's a meaty mode. There's a lot to do if you don't ever want to play this game online, and I can understand why you wouldn't because it's rough out there.
It is, dude.
The online play works very well, but people are out there to kill you, and I have to say they've learned from Mortal Kombat. Like there is a Mortal Kombat level of offline single player content.
This is what we're watching right now, which is the main campaign, and it's basically identical to Mortal Kombat. There's like a cinematic, and then eventually the posture, and then it just seamlessly goes into the fight. Basically.
And one thing I will say is that I really like that they do this better than Mortal Kombat. I think is when you finish a round or like in the middle of when like an event happens in the middle of a round. They seamlessly transition to like a cutscene where it sort of keeps fighting and things happen and someone says something and in the second round it starts and like it's really like you saw right there, like this is a seamless transition to after the round and they're gonna taunt each other a little bit in a generic anime way. And you get a little flashback.
Yep.
You got a little context. Because Jin did some bad stuff in Tekken 6, I think it was.
I mean, the plot of this is that these two hate each other.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have an Iron Fist tournament.
Pretty much.
That's pretty much the
And Jin
plot.
is like,
it's so dumb.
I mean, there's a whole thing, if you follow that. I mean, I haven't followed it. I will say that when you start the campaign, they say, do you want to watch the review videos for each previous Tekken game?
Yeah.
And I did, because I'm like, well, I did watch Brian Cox reviews the History of Tekken video they put up a couple weeks ago, which is bonkers. Like, I can't believe he did that.
I don't know how you could even do that.
And you can tell he doesn't understand what the hell he's reading a couple of them, but he fucking does it. Brian Cox, he can get through that shit, and he does it. And it is more or less accurate. It just doesn't make any sense because none of this makes any sense. Because there's devils, and Jin and Kazuya have devil blood in them and whatever.
Yeah. Well, Jin sets up the tournament, and then it becomes almost like the Avengers. Everyone starts getting in their fancy ships, and they're all coming to be a part of the tournament.
But they ask you to if you want to review them, and I did watch the videos that catch you up on that thing. One of the worst recap videos I've ever seen. Like, it's not even like a recap of what happened in the games. It's just like one of the characters, usually Heihachi or Kazuya or Jin, sort of reflecting on what happened to them in that game, and with like weird abstract watercolor black and white paintings of them, and I can't tell who anybody is. And I'm like, I mean, everybody's got almost the same hair anyway, so it's like I came out of that not knowing more than I already did. Like, it was very useless.
I mean, to be fair, I did not find this campaign to be as good as the campaign in the latest Mortal Kombat. It's way shorter for one. It's only like 4 hours long.
Yeah, it's just
the plot's not
a
as
fighting
good,
tournament.
But the actual structure of it is equal as far as like how it seamlessly transitions from fighting to cinematic and back and forth.
Yeah, this is the first fighting game campaign I would say that has finally learned the Mortal Kombat lesson.
That template.
But Mortal Kombat Mortal Kombat's drawing from that classic sort of kung fu sci-fi action pulp trash movie aesthetic idea, and Tekken is just a combat anime show.
Well, it's like an anime JRPG cross with a fighting game.
Well, it's just G Gundam.
Yeah,
it's just like it's or Pokemon, where it's like it's like the whole point of the season is the fighting tournament and training to fight in the tournament, and who's going to win and get to this thing in the semifinal. I mean, that's the whole game, and then everybody gets to be your rival, and there's like one character who has a secret agenda, and we don't know what it is, but we have to find out what it is by fighting them, and it's because you don't really know someone until you fight them, because that's how life works for some reason. It's that kind of thing, and it's like it doesn't try to be more than that, and Tekken has never tried to be more than that, and it's fine. It's just done with the highest production values you've ever frickin' seen. And for someone who's already a fan of kind of the Tekken thing, I think that's plenty.
Well, I'm not slagging. I'm just saying Mortal Kombat's is better.
I mean, I would definitely rather play Mortal Kombat in the sense that the story's more interesting.
It's also way longer. Like, Mortal Kombat's like 10, 11 hours long, its campaign.
These are very short, and like there's like I think it's 14 chapters, and each chapter is literally one fight.
Yeah.
Like, and some of the fights have, tons of cinematics, but like you only fight one fight, and sometimes that fight lasts like 3 matches, but it's not like Mortal Kombat where you kind of like get three bouts with a character and that's your chapter, which is a little more meaty.
I also discovered you can cheese the game. So I discovered on medium difficulty setting, the default difficulty setting, you can just keep jabbing and watch. You can just beat them. Almost probably 80% of the enemies, if I got tired of fighting them, I just keep jabbing them and beat them. Like, they just, I don't know, they just haven't looked through the code enough. Like,
no, I'm sure it's there because who wants to really put effort into doing this?
I guess.
But offline stuff. People who are casual don't want to have to learn like complex combos to survive in a campaign mode.
No, that's true.
And like online warriors don't want to waste too much of their playtime getting through this stupid story. So it's more just to see what happens. And so I can understand why. If you want to turn it up to hard, I'm sure it's much more difficult.
I'm sure. There are 16 different stages in the game, but again, I found a lot of them to be boring, but a couple of them, the stages do matter because they have breakaway sections.
Yeah, you can break through
you can break
things.
through and end up down in new sections of the level. I haven't enjoyed that in a fighting game for a while, it feels like.
I mean, Dead or Alive was the only thing that did that, really.
Yeah, so it's good to see that, but again, a lot of the stages I found to be...
And you'll never see those stages in competition.
Yeah, you're right. Because it'll be the most boring flat of all the stages. That's how they do it.
No items, final destination.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the campaign in this, it's a lot of anime stuff. Just a lot of posturing, a lot of screaming, a lot of close-ups of clenched fists, like that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's something that the Mortal Kombat campaigns kind of transcend. But again, you may like that stuff, so your mileage will vary. One thing that I found in the campaign, Matt, I don't know if you got far enough to get to it, but there are these sections in the campaign where the game turns into a beat-em-up.
Yeah, the Tekken Force stuff.
Oh, it's so awful.
That's been a thing in Tekken since, I think, 3.
It's so awkward. It's like you're on this weird, like, plane where you have to try to figure out if you're on the right plane for the enemy that you're fighting against. Like... So you're constantly like tapping up or down on the D-pad.
The Tekken 4 stuff has never really worked right.
Oh, it's awful. And there's like, to be fair, it probably lasts like 30 or 40 minutes, but the whole campaign only lasts like 4 hours.
That thing has always been sort of a side mode, sort of a hey, look what we can do kind of thing. And it's never been very...
Hey, look what we're terrible at is what I would say.
Well, that was always... It was that. There was Tekken Ball. There's Tekken Bowling.
Tekken Ball's in this.
Almost every mini game from the old days is back in this. I think.
Silk Snake asks, how are the jiggle physics? Very toned down.
Yeah, there's not a lot of gratuitous... I
think they did a good job. Yeah. I mean, the women are still attractive and sexy without being ridiculous.
The new Peruvian girl with the coffee plantation is great.
MMA fighter. Supposed to be, but she doesn't do a lot of MMA stuff.
No, she mostly drinks coffee and dodges.
She looks like she's to me is like the female version of Eddie Gordo.
A little bit, like she
kind of capoeira style. She
has a little bit of capoeira, but also a little bit of like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. A little bit. I mean, there's a lot going on, but also like she's evasive, and I think they did that very well. I don't understand how to play her, but it's pretty cool to watch like people that know what they're doing with her, because like Justin Wong was playing her for a little bit, and like he was just trolling people. Like they just couldn't hit him, and he wouldn't even hit back. He's just like, no,
just juking and jiving.
No. And it was great. It was like, and you don't see characters like that much.
No,
like,
you're right.
Those are hard to make. And
I think Eddie Gordo is the first DLC character for this. I think that's what they've said.
Sure, I don't know.
Here is
that would make sense because he's kind of one of the he's Capoeira is kind of missing from the roster here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fighting styles that just aren't represented here.
Yeah.
Because I guess 33 is fine.
Yeah, it's a ton.
But like, there's little elements you're like, oh, where's this? Where's that? Where's the kangaroo? The kangaroo is in it.
Yeah.
The kangaroo is behind a bar at one point.
Yeah. I didn't fight with him or against him though.
No, he's not playable in this, but you got both.
Maybe eventually.
You got both frickin' bears for some reason.
I mean, again, there's like
I do appreciate
so many characters they've left out.
I do appreciate that one of the super moves the bear has is it turns a salmon into a rocket.
Yeah,
and blows you up with a salmon.
Yep. Now we're seeing the multiplayer stuff. So you saw my little avatar that I created earlier running around in this, and that's stripped straight out of Street Fighter. But it's a great idea. I mean, it's probably the way fighting.
Although to be fair, like the fighting game avatar thing basically comes from the anime fighters. Like that's a Guilty Gear Blaze.
No, I get that, but I mean the structure as far as like you can run around this virtual arcade and you can walk up to the arcade machines and you can challenge people to fight. Like,
but that's again from those anime. Like that's always been how Guilty Gear worked. Even
Guilty Gear games are like that.
I mean, not as elaborate. Like but it's like even back in the old Guilty Gear. I think Guilty Gear on the PS3, you could walk around in this little fake arcade and like that's
for multiplayer.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
that's
been around forever.
I didn't know how I missed that.
It's just like this. For whatever reason, Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 are one of the ones who the mainstream big budget games are like, oh yeah, we're gonna do that now.
Yeah.
And they did it well. That's
unlike multiplayer, it's the perfect setup for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, you don't have to do that. You can just go into the menus and be like, I want to choose ranked play or unranked play.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool. Like it sets the scene for people like us who were reared in the arcades. It gives me a little bit of that vibe again. I like it. I like that feeling. So I end up using the actual arcade, this interface, instead of just going to the menus. I don't know why. It's kind of silly, but I do. What else we got here? So you have the Tekken Fight Lounge. There's ranked, there's unranked, and then there's quick battles. I'm just going to say it. Like, I just got annihilated playing online.
Hey, look, it's fake rated.
Like, literally, the matchmaking in this, like, I was like on my second match, I had 100 Tekken points, and they were matching me with people that had like 25,000 Tekken points.
Yeah, there's not a lot of newbies that I've seen.
I met some of the people that I fought. I never hit them once, and I like the online matches are actually like it's like the first to 3 instead of the first to 2.
Tekken's always best of 3.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, after the second fight, I just quit. I just laid there and let them beat me up. I couldn't touch them. They would just, if I could maybe get the first shot in, and that was it. Yep. They just literally started a combo that wiped me out.
Yep.
Time after time after time.
You don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing in Tekken, you'll never.
You have no chance.
Nope.
And again, because the matchmaking is
and to be
terrible.
Clear, the matchmaking has no choice because really people who are of our skill level are not playing Tekken Online.
I guess, like, nobody ever starts at 0. Everyone has to start at 0.
Yeah, but but if you're any good, you get way up there all really fast. Like,
you would think they'd be fighting each other, so they wouldn't.
There's no one else to fight.
It feels like all the experts are playing the noobs when I played this. Like,
it's simply not what's happening.
It's got to be boring for them. Like,
I mean, they don't love it because they're not getting much XP out of it. But again, you're high enough; it doesn't matter. Also, you're probably really fiing like.
Also, by the way, did you just see what happened there?
Yeah, he throws her head back.
This is my.
You're really
main.
fighting mid-range people.
This is my main. I've chose Elisa. She's a cyborg, and she does awesome stuff.
There's
like
also been
hand her head to enemies, and then the head explodes.
There's also been a whole thing where. The higher
there it is.
The higher level
That's freaking great.
There's also been a whole thing where the higher level players have been caught boosting.
Oh, as if they need to.
Yeah, like the top 1 and 2 players were caught boosting with each other.
I'm just gonna say, like, I mean, I'm sure eventually I could keep playing and maybe I could get good enough. I mean, it would take a lot of work, man.
I mean, I'm not gonna do that.
These players are so good. Like, I don't know. I fought online maybe 10 or 15 matches, and I was like, I just got tired of getting my ass kicked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like what's happening here, like this play. This is not Tekken. Like, this is not. I mean, this is how casual people play Tekken. But if you play it like this, you're never gonna get anything. I mean, this is how I have to play too. I don't know anything about how Tekken combos work because none of you, like, we haven't even seen a combo here.
Right.
None of these are combos. If you do like just like like they have the little like strings they show you in the training thing. Those aren't called combos in the community. They're just called strings.
Yeah.
A combo is when you pop someone up and air juggle them, and then they land on the ground, and you hit their feet and pop them up again, and do what's called the tornado move, which like resets the combo,
which is hard
so they're not
to pull
falling
off
as fast.
in the heat of battle.
But you just do it until you memorize it. You get your bread and butter. You get 2 or 3 down, and then that's how you. But that's why you have to focus on one character. Like, that's almost a combo. But then they keep falling faster, and you have to do the tornado to make them land on the ground, stick their feet up, and then you hit him again. And hopefully you back them into the wall, and then you get another few hits as they fall off the wall.
That's the other thing about this game is
Tekken.
The environment does matter. So you can slam them into, if you fight them to the edge of the map, you can slam them into the wall a little bit like Dead or Alive and actually do some extra damage here and there. So,
but there's like 4 different variables about how many times you can hit them after they hit the wall, depending on when they hit the wall, where they hit the wall, and how tall the wall is,
and how much they bounce off of the wall.
Well, that doesn't matter.
I mean, as far as continuing your juggle, it does.
No, it doesn't, because how they fall after they hit the wall is completely determined by A, how many hits you've had in the combo, and B, where they hit the wall. If they hit a high wall splat, you're going to get 3 hits as they fall down. If they hit a low wall splat, you're going to get 2 and miss the 3rd. If they hit the high wall, but you've already juggled them off of the tornado, and the tornado was the last hit before the wall, you'll only get 2. But if you started with the tornado, you can't continue with the tornado, and the tornado will not get you any extra hits off the wall, so you have to just finish the combo.
If you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, oh my God.
And again, I know all this stuff, but I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, to be clear, like, I'm not good at Tekken. Like, I can tell you this is what you're supposed to do, and I know that's what you're supposed to do, but I can't fucking do it.
Yeah.
Like, I have not practiced.
Look, I played Street Fighter, I played Mortal Kombat. I could hang fighting other humans in those. In this, I just got annihilated.
Well,
completely. I couldn't even land a hit.
Well, part of it is also that, like, 2D fighters all kind of have a little bit of similarity to each other. Like, 3D fighters are all their own beasts.
That's true.
Tekken's mechanics are completely different from Virtua Fighters, which are completely different from Soul Caliburs, which are completely different from Dead or Alive, which are completely different from, I don't know, Street Fighter EX plus Alpha. Being good at one doesn't make you good at the others, and in some cases makes you worse, because if you're expecting this to play like Virtua Fighter, you're going to get killed.
Well, side steps in this are important, like tapping up and down on the D-pad to just get into a different plane.
Do you know how many different ways there are to get up in this game?
A lot.
15.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
at least. And it's one of the few fighters where you can stay laying on the ground if you want.
Yeah. And this is where I'm coming to my conclusion a little bit about this game, and it's that I finished the campaign in like 4 hours, and then I honestly spent way more time on the arcade quest than I did on the campaign.
Arcade quest is pretty. It sucks you in more.
I enjoyed it.
It's definitely the best single player content.
I felt that way.
In the game.
I played it longer than I played the flashy campaign, and then I was like, now what? Because I went online and I'm like,
now
I can't
you're just
compete.
stuck with a Tekken game,
right?
That's what.
And now you just have this game. Like, unless you're committed to getting good at this game, and a lot of people, I would argue, they buy fighting games and they are dedicated to getting good at it. Unless you're that person, I don't think you're going to get your money's worth out of this game. It's $70. And like the single player stuff, you can play it a day and you pretty much kind of work through most of it. And then all you're left is playing online. And you need to be dedicated to get good at this, or they're just going to embarrass your ass like they embarrassed me.
Yeah, there is no casual on Tekken Online.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist.
It's brutal. I couldn't believe it.
The line between a casual player and a player that knows what they're doing is sharper in this game than in the Tekken series than any other fighting game to me.
Yeah.
I mean, there are games. I mean, obviously, you jump into like Marvel 2 and someone's an infinite you, and you'll never even get to touch the buttons.
Yeah.
But like in terms of modern stuff, like you can hold your own in a Street Fighter game. You can hold your own in a King of Fighters or even a Guilty Gear or Blaze Blue or Grand Blue Saga. But like, if you don't know how to do the actual, the air juggle,
breaking the combo is the hard part.
Yeah, well, you can't break the combos.
Yeah.
Like you just gotta not be hit, and to do that you have to know exactly how Tekken kind of Oki strategy works, and hopefully know what your opponent can do.
Yeah.
And that takes literal research. Like if you look at the beginner guides for this game, you'll see people constantly talking about learn this and practice it at least 5 minutes a day. Like you need a daily training regimen. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm not into that. That's not my thing.
And as someone who is way behind the curve because I haven't played Tekken seriously ever, like I feel like if I wanted to get good at this game, I could, but that would be my full-time pastime for like
it'd be the
month.
only thing I would play. Yeah. No, I hear you.
And I just don't. And here's the thing: I don't find the fighting in Tekken very interesting or rewarding. Like I just don't. I think everybody feels a little too stiff.
Well, the way these games are designed is like you do a combo, you unload, the other guy stops your combo, and then he unloads. It's like you take turns being aggressive, basically.
Well, Tekken's a very aggressive game.
Yeah.
And it's all about blocking and punishing and knowing what you can punish with and what you can't. And all fighting games are like that to some degree, but Tekken is high stakes in a way that almost no other fighting game is. Like if you
make one mistake, they unlaunch a combo string that literally will just wipe you out.
And look, there's tons of come from behind mechanics in this. There's multiple, the heat bar lets you like deal a lot of damage.
And we should talk about the heat bar because that's the new feature to the combat engine.
Like the heat bar basically is that you don't see it in this because it's all
cinematic footage. Yeah,
but you get a heat bar and there's the heat. That was her heat move. Her heat activation. So the heat moves, you'll see that's the little blue bar underneath the life bar. And the heat bar works two different ways. You can just hit R1 or buttons 2 and 3 to activate it, which is what just happened there. If you activate it that way, it drops to 2/3, and then you can use the rest to do whatever you want with it. And the way
you can do it again. Like I found most characters, you can do 2 heat attacks with a full meter.
Well, the heat activation is different from the attack. So if you do a heat attack, you generally have used the whole bar up if you've activated it that way. But the other way to activate it is you can do these. I don't remember the actual name, but when you do the attack, it has like a maroon fireball on it. It's like a maroon shaded energy thing on it.
Yep.
And if you do if you have certain follow up, and it's different for each character, but you do follow up, you will go into heat mode, and the next attack you do will be heat powered, and then you'll be in heat mode, and you'll get the whole bar that way. So that's the better way to transition to heat mode. In heat mode, you do extra damage. Every attack does chip damage, which is very important.
Even if they're blocking.
That's what chip damage is. It's damage that's done while you're blocking.
Yeah.
And you can erase gray health, which can be mentioned. And then you can do the heat attack, which if that connects is like a mini super move. And then you can do the actual super move, I don't remember the actual official name, but you do the actual super move when your life's low and the red flames are around your life bar. And that thing can take off like 1/3 of your health.
Yeah. And that's R2 to initiate that. It's called, a heat rush or something, I think?
No, it's something else. It's like I can't remember. I don't remember the names of anything in this game. But then there's all this stuff with like when you do damage to someone, they have gray health, which is like there's a gray outline, or it's hard to see sometimes, around the health bar, and you can recover that as long as that's not destroyed. And like you recover that by just doing attacks. Even if they're blocked, you'll get a little health back, and it'll fill up your gray health. But then there's other moves people can do that can reduce your gray health. And there are characters who have moves that erase all gray health if they land it. So that's a balanced thing you can figure out how to exploit if you want to, depending on what character you're using. So, but like, yeah, that's the thing is like you'll see people like suddenly you see the green lights on the health bar because they're gaining gray health back while they're doing attacks. So like the attacks do huge damage in this game, but there are a lot of ways to get life back and to like do huge damage back. And there's always a way to, the balance is actually very, very good, but it requires you to be playing it at a high level. And if you're just playing casual, like look how fast that guy died. Like it's like that's his health gone. But there's like things where like, and you got to know the plus frames and the negative frames, and like there's like a big attack that what's his name, the guy, the Leon, or the guy who's standing in the airship in the campaign all the time with the hair.
The guy with the big collar?
Yeah, with the big collar and the lion on his chest.
Yeah, I don't know what his name is, actually.
I think it's Leon. Is it Leon?
Maybe or Leo.
Leo is the younger kid who's no one's sure what gender he is.
Oh, right.
Because that's the thing is, like, characters in this game have, like, a lot of set clothing, and there's, like, male clothing and female clothing. Leo has a almost 50-50 mix of male and female clothing, and nobody really knows what that means. Maybe we'll find out later.
Yeah.
But the French guy, or the Leon guy, who's helping. He's the guy who fights Jin in the second chapter to like.
I know his stage is in Paris on the river. Same.
I think it's him. He has like this low sweep kick that can go into like almost an 80% damage combo, but if you can block it low. If you block it low, it's like something like some crazy thing like 35 frame negative, which means you have all the time in the world to punish that.
Yeah.
So that's the balance on that. It's like it's easy to see coming, and you can block it and get so it's a big risk, big reward. But again, if you don't know he can do that, and you don't know that if you block it, you get that big punish, you're gonna keep getting creamed by that move. It's just it's a. And I know this from like just watching videos for like over the weekend and trying to figure out why I suck at this game. And over the time, I'm just sort of like, okay, I understand why I suck at this game, and I have absolutely no reason and no longer not suck, because it's going to take so much work to not suck at this game.
Yeah. I mean, the combat is pretty simple. It's really just 4 face buttons, and then the heat system is just on the shoulders.
They get a stunning amount of complexity out of 4 buttons.
It really is amazing. Yeah.
I mean, really, it is just 4 buttons.
There's no block button. You just hold back to block.
The shoulder buttons are just shortcuts for pressing those
multiples of those. 4, you're right.
Heat is just 2 and 3.
You're right. You could use just 4, yeah.
So it's I mean, it is a massive technical achievement. And I would also there's a lot of innovation in this in terms of presentation and learning tools, because
the tutorials are great.
Tutorials are great, but like the replays, there's a thing in the replays in this that I think everybody, if they haven't patented it, because Namco does that.
Right.
If you watch a replay of yourself or anyone, you can watch a replay and it will zoom in and show you, here's where you fucked up.
Yeah.
It'll be like, here's what this happened. If you zoom in on this thing, it'll tell you if you can block this, or you can dodge this, you do this to dodge it, or if you block this and then like don't retaliate, it's like you could punish this with this move or that move. And then you can take over in the replay and play from that point on and try to do better than you did when you fucked up.
That's incredible.
And that is amazing.
That's next level.
What an amazing teaching and learning tool that is. That's incredible.
No, you're right.
Like, I'd put this on the when the time comes, that puts this on the most innovative game nominee list already for me.
For Game of the Year stuff later on.
Like, that is incredible, and everyone should steal it.
The tutorials are great too. The whole game teaches you how to play it all along.
When I say it's going to take me forever to learn to be good at this game, and I don't care to do that because I don't have the time or interest, it's not a knock on the game's ability, like trying to keep me out, or like that the game is impenetrable. Like, the game is right there to teach you from the basest things. Like, it'll teach you which button does what for 10 minutes if you want.
You're right. Yeah.
Like, Tekken 8 absolutely wants you to play it and absolutely wants to teach you how to be good at it. Like, it is the most.
But do you want to?
Right, exactly. It's one of the most welcoming fighting games I have ever played.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
so now we're at the conclusion here. It's like, do you recommend that people buy it? I honestly struggle to tell people to buy this game unless...
If you like Tekken, buy it.
Right.
That's it.
That's all I would say. Yeah.
That's it. Or if you look at it and you think it looks amazing, which, again, I think it looks amazing... technically, I don't like Tekken's aesthetic very much, really. I think
art.
Everybody looks kind of similar and ugly.
Again, it has this weird kind of Victorian angle to the... I don't even know how to explain it.
Mirko Supreme is correct. I did watch 5DX's beginner guide. That was one of the things I watched.
Oh, okay.
The guy, I wouldn't have remembered his name until he said, but yeah, 5DX. Look up, if you're interested, go to YouTube and look up Tekken 8. I think it's Absolute Beginner Guide. And he teaches you some basics and then gets into more, complex fundamentals. Mm-hmm. A lot of what I've said here is probably lifting from that and a couple other videos I watched to try to figure out what the fuck I was missing.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Even if you don't intend to play it, if you just you're vaguely interested, like, even if you just want to know about fighting games, like you'll learn something about how fighting games work. It'll make watching the next Evo more interesting for you, I'm sure, because you'll know why people are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, but
if you either have to already be into Tekken, or you're like, I see this and I'm excited about this, even though I'm not a Tekken person, but I 100% I want this to be my game for the spring. Like, until for Q1, I'm just going to play this game and figure it out. Tekken 8 will do that for you, but you have to you have to take it on as, like you said, another job, basically.
Yeah, I would not buy this unless you really want to play online.
100%.
I would not buy this for a single player. There's not enough content.
Or if you have,
there's a lot. But
if you have a real life group of friends who you just like to fuck around on Tekken,
dorms,
sure,
frat house, buy it. Totally get it. Like, I think it's great for those situations, but single player doesn't last that long. If you want to get your money's worth out of this, you're gonna need to play online for most people, unless, again, you're in a setting where you have 3 or 4 brothers and sisters in the house, or you're in a dorm with a bunch of other college kids, or you're in a frat with a bunch of your frat boys. Stuff like that, it makes sense, but unless you're dedicated and want to get really good at it,
because otherwise you're showing up at the fucking at the tuner car meet downtown with your mom's Civic,
pretty much. Yep.
And you're gonna get you're gonna get beaten and you're gonna get laughed at, and you're gonna need to get better.
Yep. So there you go. That's Tekken 8. It is a $70 game. It is, I would argue, technically the best looking fighting game I've ever seen.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That Unreal Engine 5 makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah. And just the seamless transitions between the fighting and the campaign cutscenes. I mean, it's really impressive.
Slick. Yep, they did a good job. But again, really, you need to be into it for competitive reasons.
Not for me, but I have nothing but good things to say about it, basically.
Yep. All right, let's move on to our last topic of GameFace, episode 374. We're going to discuss a game that maybe should have been first ahead of Tekken, but I had to make the tough decision. But that game is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, the next installment in the Like a Dragon franchise. It is a turn-based RPG that eventually is crossed with the resort management sim. However, Matt...
So the Germans would have us believe.
Yeah. So Matt, I have played this game. I think I would guess I've played it for 12 or 13 hours at this point. I have not got to the management sim part of the game.
I am about almost 7 hours in, and I have just gotten to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I'll say for the first several hours of this game, I'm sitting here thinking, because it's basically just a continuation off of Yakuza, Like a Dragon, Yakuza 7, with the same main character and the same group, same place. And I was sitting there thinking, how in the world is this guy going to end up naked on a beach in Hawaii? Like how are you getting there?
Because it starts out, basically everything's gone to crap. Like, your clan has basically been dissolved.
Well, so early on, it's actually he's doing all right, because basically
he's working at a job placement service. Yeah. Well, he's trying to hire former Yakuza who can't find work.
Yeah, well, the ultimate result of the previous game was he and his friends basically brought down the 2 major Yakuza clans that have been the major Yakuza clans in the Yakuza series for 7 games. Yeah. The Omi and the Tojo are no more. So they've got 10,000 ex-Yakuza running around who can't get jobs. Yeah. So he's trying to help them all. His goal, because his father figure, the head of one of the other the clan he was part of, wanted all ex-Yakuza to have a civilian life and to start over. And so his his like thing is like, I'm going to do the best job for the captain and do that. And in the beginning of the game, he's actually doing pretty good.
Oh, he's great. He's like the employee of the month. He's like helping Yakuza find work that they weren't able to find before. The Yakuza's figured it out.
Yeah. And everybody likes him. He's called the hero of Yokohama. He's like, you walk down the street and everybody's got little speech bubbles. You're like, oh, hey,
there
how you doing? Hey, Ichiban, like, what's up?
So
he's a popular person and like, and then it spends 3 hours going on about how horrible he is at dating.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't play Yakuza 7 to the end. I don't really know. I mean, I didn't play it that long because I hadn't finished any of the other stuff. I was like, it was starting off at the end of Kazuya's story to the point that I'm like, I don't remember any, or Kiryu's story that I'm like, I don't know any of this yet. I should wait until I finish 6.
Yeah.
And I still haven't done that. Like I said, if we stop doing this show tomorrow, the first thing I do is replay all the Yakuza games because then it would take me probably 4 months, but I would get to it. But like, I did not remember him being quite so much of a loser.
Yeah.
And I guess it's consistent. He's a big, strong, dumb guy.
Yeah.
And he admits that that's what he is. Mostly.
And it comes through the more you play this game. He makes dumb mistakes and makes poor decisions, and so it starts out that he's working at this job placement agency, placing Yakuzas into jobs as they've all tried to leave the mob, basically. But eventually, someone sets him up. And they start spying on him, and while he's doing good things for the Yakuza, the way it looks,
is 5 hours in.
Right.
Like,
while it looks like he's doing good stuff for the Yakuza, the way that they film him and take pictures of him, it makes him look like he's doing shady stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting in that it basically is tackling cancel culture in a weird way. Like,
there's all kinds of subtle stuff like that.
Yeah, because it's an online, like, it's an online like outrage. They call it like an outrage channel where like it posts up. It's a tabloid. It posts up news with a virtual newscaster anime girl who basically, and like you've already played through all these. And I love these scenes where it's like, they are so proud of their
throat tech.
They're so proud of their throat tech and their liquid physics.
Yeah, the throat tech.
The fact that
they zoomed in on everyone's throat to show them that they actually swallow.
And the fact that these characters can all they can drink convincingly.
I'm actually going to rewind that because people probably didn't catch it, but they are literally showing off their drinking technology here at the beginning of this scene.
This series has people drinking alcohol so often that they specifically designed a
watch
way
their throats.
The throat, and watch the liquid disappear. That's really hard to do. Like this is, I think it was 6. They finally they revamped all their liquid tech and their drinking. Like you'll never see a game character do that outside of like a Naughty Dog game.
Yeah, they're showing it off.
But people like characters just hold highball drinks all the time, and they wanted it to look sloshing and realistic, and so they did. And so that's one of the things in the Yakuza games is
there's
the liquids look really realistic.
In the game where he opens a doorknob and they're showing you, they're like, look, he like jostles it first and then you see his emotion coming through his hand on the doorknob, like all stuff that
do
like
a really good job.
You couldn't even do
or
in
even
video
I think
games.
it was 7 where they did he takes a bite of bread and like they animate him pulling the bread with his teeth and and like all the animators in the industry are like, why would you do that to yourself? It's so hard.
Work.
He's like like one animator I saw was like, I think he was working on Spider-Man. He's like, that's the most amazing animation clip I've seen in years. Like it's just so unnecessary. It's just showing off. It's like when characters take their shirts and clothes off in Naughty Dog games,
right?
Like you get where you like when I think with Abby or Ellie takes her shirt off and like, does it on screen. That's
really a huge
hard.
Deal. Yeah.
So there's a lot of technical like proficiency on display.
Ray99 says this game makes me miss smoking.
Yeah,
people smoke in this game.
Smoking is
constantly
because they smoke in Japan.
They do absolutely. So anyway, what happens is he gets fired from his job at the placement service because he's set up by somebody.
Yeah, basically, like there's one day where his whole life just falls apart in one day.
Yep. He goes home after he gets fired, and there's a bunch of teenagers there, like, extorting him, basically, to, like, not publish a video on social media.
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to cancel him, basically, to your point about cancel culture being a part of the plot in this. And so what happens is, like, they're like, well, we tried to go legit, it didn't work out, and they basically just go right back to their old ways. And he gets the band back together, he pulls out his old baseball bat, and they go right back to being Yakuza again, basically.
Well, sort of. What it turns out is that they go to the Seiryu, which is like the bad guys in the man who
forgot his name. The man who
forgot it. Whatever that was. The Kiryu spinoff.
Yeah.
They go to them because they have a new chairman after all the events of 7. And you fight your way through he even calls it a dungeon. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the things in this game is that he's kind of crazy. And like, when you get in fights with guys in the street, sometimes they'll change into really weird looking enemies.
Yeah.
And his friends don't see it, and he's just like, well, I'm going to imagine them as however I want to imagine. So basically, all the different enemy types in this game are because he's kind of a crazy person who imagines them to be weirder than just like guys in thugs on the street.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
But you go through it, and he actually calls it a dungeon, and at the end the chairman is just like, oh, hey, sorry to keep you waiting. I guess they didn't listen to me when I said don't kill you. Come with me. And there's a whole extra scheme to get everybody off this. It actually turns out pretty well, and there's some revelations and some people that you thought did some things in the last game didn't, and some people who were dead in the last game aren't dead, and he in the end has to go to Hawaii because of that. And
well, no, he meets somebody who tells him who his real parents are.
Right. Well, that's who I'm saying is not dead.
Oh, okay. He goes to Hawaii to meet his real parents, including his mom, who he didn't know.
Well, just his mom, because his real parents
the dad was. I don't want to spoil it, but he goes to meet his mom in Hawaii, basically, and then he gets there, and you think, oh, this is where. Now, maybe she's running an old rickety resort, and he's going to take over her resort. It's your job to rebuild your mom's resort. No! Going to Hawaii just starts this whole other crazy long, again, I've played this game for almost 15 hours. I still have not got to the resort management stuff.
Yeah, the resort management stuff is deep in there.
It's crazy that they marketed it that way. So I was telling Matt, I say a lot on the show.
That is the main difference here, because otherwise it is a pretty straight sequel to the last game.
Yeah. I was telling Matt before we recorded today that often on GameFace I mentioned that I like to go into evaluating games knowing as little as possible about the game. I just want to evaluate what's on the disc without any preconceived notions. And the reason I say that is because of something that happened with this game, which is I knew it was supposed to be a turn-based RPG crossed with a resort management sim. And the whole time I'm playing it, I'm like, where the hell's the resort management sim? If I had just played this game and picked it up without knowing, I wouldn't have sat there for 15 hours being like, where the hell is this shit? It kind of altered how I ultimately played the game. So maybe when I say this in the future, you'll understand what I'm saying and why I say that. Because it absolutely affected my opinion of this game as I was playing it. I'm like, where is it? And if you put out a bunch of trailers with the resort in it. The very first trailer is him on the beach, the whole nude thing or whatever. You set those expectations right away.
Which is not how he gets to Hawaii. He just flies there in a normal
plane. On a plane. Yeah. It's So anyway, that's why I say that a lot on GameFace. I try to go into games knowing as little about them as possible so I can just give them as fair a shake as possible. So again, we're kind of spoiling it for you guys. The resort management stuff, I still haven't played it. Mm-hmm. I still haven't got to try it. So maybe next week we'll come back if both of us have made it to that point. But again, we got 2 big games to jump on and start playing for next week's show.
I mean, as Eth Demon points out, the resort stuff is largely optional.
Oh, it is? I don't know.
Well, because it's like the business management stuff in the other games where it's you don't have to do it. You're going to have a lot easier time from a number of angles if you do it.
But you don't have to?
You'll have a lot of money. You'll be able to upgrade things. You'll have more XP, so you'll be more leveled up. It's tedious to do the Hostess Club stuff in the old Yakuza games, but they gave you so much loot doing that. It was so worth it because you were all of a sudden you had the best gear for the point in the game and all that. So yeah, and you buy all your weaponry from the adult store.
Well, when you first start, you're in Japan, and you build this little crew. You get back together with your old crew of guys, and you fight a lot, using that party. And then you go to Hawaii, and you start all over, and you build this whole other crew back up.
And you will eventually be able to go back to Japan.
I would guess, yeah.
Because you have to do the Pokedex.
Oh, right. Yeah, so here's the thing. So the resort management stuff takes forever to show up, but instead, there is just tons of crap. The gameplay variety in this really is one of its plus. There's a reality TV show that takes place at a mall where the whole mall is an escape room. There's a Pokemon knockoff where you fight humans against each other, and you have to go out into the world and collect humans to fight for you.
Which was in the first one, the previous one, where except you were just every time you fought them, you get a Pokedex entry for the enemy, and in this one,
you're capturing
before you go to Hawaii. They're the weird professor is oh yeah, you can. Apparently you can. There's a whole collection and fighting them thing that happens in Hawaii, and Ichiban's like, how does that work? He's like, don't worry about that until you get there. It's like we're not going to explain that.
Well, then you get there, and it's literally just Pokemon. You have a team of 3 dudes fighting the other team of 3 dudes, and the mechanics...
it's essentially bum fights.
It really is. It kind of is, actually. But it just goes on and on. There are raids scattered all over the map. There's this other system called the Pound Mates, where you call in helpers like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, if you look at like the status screen or whatever, which there's like 4 of them.
Yeah,
one of the status screens shows like how many mini games you've played. And it's whatever number you played out of 80.
It's insane.
There's 80 mini games in this.
It's loaded,
including a bunch of classic Sega arcade games.
Yeah, but the Pound Mate system, like you complete side missions. Like the first Pound Mate that I found, I had to deliver stuff on a bike like Crazy Taxi. They had set it up, same sound effects, same everything, and you're on a bicycle doing tricks trying to deliver food to these people around the town.
But did they play The Offspring?
They didn't. No, they didn't get that license. And then you finish it, and then the guy who gave you the mission becomes a Pound Mate, meaning that when you go into battle for the rest of the game, you can choose that guy to be a part of your party for that fight. And then as you go through the game, you find other Pound Mates that you can add to your party. Again, a lot. Yeah. What was that system called in Assassin's Creed? Where you could just call in your dudes and they just fly in off the roof.
Like the Brotherhood thing.
Something like that, yeah.
That was very cool. I mean, they had something like that in the previous one. Like, again, this is a very, very direct sequel to the last one.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the same mechanics are here. You'll be very familiar with it. The combat system is more or less the same. And more or less, I mean, I do prefer the action-based combat in this, but I think this works fine. Like,
so the way I've described this, it's a turn-based RPG crossed with shuffleboard.
Yeah, you are trying to knock everybody into each other.
So it's like the first guy you attack is your puck that you're sliding, and then the other dudes are the pucks at the other end of the shuffleboard course. So what you want to do is you want to line them up so that you can ricochet them into each other to do more damage. And there are some attacks that are designed specifically for that. Like, there are kicks where it's like, hey, line up as many people as possible. The more you line up, the more damage you do. So when you're in combat, you're always trying to orient yourself in such a way that either you're knocking an enemy into an obstacle, you're knocking them into another enemy, or you're knocking them into one of your party members, because if you do that, then they will get an extra hit and knock them back in your direction. And so crowd management is a big part of the turn-based combat in this. And then the other part of it that keeps it a little bit active is that you need to block. And enemies just come in and attack, and you need to hit the circle button at perfect timing. It is so hard to time it, because some of the enemies will do the stutter thing where they'll come into punch and they'll stop and then punch.
Yeah, you got to know everybody's moves, and then you got to hope the camera shows you what's happening in time.
Yeah, because a lot of times the camera just isn't fast enough, and you just start getting attacked off camera. And I found that to be very, very annoying.
Yeah, it's not great, and it really hasn't improved much from the previous one. But I will say, like, the thing is, like, it's so easy to heal up that it doesn't really matter. Because food's everywhere and restaurants are everywhere. And,
well, if you have the money, because the other thing is, that, at least for me in this economy, I've always been just hovering around like $200 or $300 pretty much the whole time. But Matt's right, like you eat food basically to heal. But there's times where you get stuck out like away from a restaurant, so you don't want to run all the way back to the restaurant. So you're like, I'll just risk it. And then one of the enemies picks up a bike or whatever and hits you in the head with it and just kills you. And then when you die, you have to spend money to try again. Or you can say no, and they'll just take you back to your last save point. So
it's generally better to go back to your last save.
It is, yeah. Because again, the money's scarce, and if you die, they'll take like $50 or $60 of your money, and that's a lot in this game. So
and eventually you will hit a point. You certainly like the first game. I assume I'm not that far, but like you will hit a point where you can handle that stuff, and you have more money than God. So
I haven't got there yet.
But there's always going to be that early part where you're like trying to find your bearings.
And you can see there's some active parts of the attacks. Like sometimes you need to smash square to add more damage to it. Sometimes you need to time like the triangle taps when the zone comes down under the triangle. Sometimes you just have to put in like quick time stuff in before the timer runs out. So the combat, while it's turn-based, is still pretty active. Like I enjoyed the combat in this, other than the off-camera stuff and some of the smaller issues.
Yeah, it's very satisfying for the most part.
Yeah, I actually really liked it. As far as leveling up,
just like the previous one, it's a shockingly good translation of how the combat felt in the
turn-based RPG. Yeah. They've done a great job. When you level up both your level and your rank in your job. So in the job in this is your class basically, and the classes are funny. Like, you end up ultimately, light spoiler here, like your cabbie that picks you up at the airport in Hawaii ends up being in your party.
Yeah.
And his class is cabbie. Like, so there's other cabbies out there that you can add to your party, and they have a very specific...
the classes are very fun.
They are funny,
like
yeah.
One of your friends, one of the Nanba, one of your guys from the previous game, his class is homeless guy.
Right, yeah.
And
sometimes you start a fight, it'll just say asshole on the screen.
yeah, that's very funny. Like
there's definitely some levity in this.
Very straightforward.
Yeah. But I'll say this too, Matt. Overall, this game is way less wacky than I thought it was going to be. And again, maybe once you get to the resort, things like crack open. Right. Maybe once you get to the resort, things crack open and get crazy. But so far, like, if you watch a trailer of this and then play the game, it feels like two different experiences.
Well, I think they're leaning into that to a large degree because that's the main new thing.
Right.
You know, like that's the big difference here. It is Yakuza 7 done as a sequel, but at some point you run a Hawaiian resort.
Yeah.
And otherwise, you'd just be showing a lot of this without knowing the nuance and the extra little mini-game systems. It's just the previous game again.
Yeah. Now, generally, the way this is designed is, like, you don't really have to grind that much. However, you will get to points in this game where it's like, hey, here's a point of no return.
I can't believe that didn't kill him.
Right. Once you go back, once you choose to go forward, you can't go back, and they'll recommend the level that you need to be. And that's pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. Like, I tried to go through one of those big gatekeeping doors, not being the level I was supposed to. The very first fight, one punch, all my guys were knocked out dead.
Yeah, definitely believe the level game.
Yes, when they tell you need to be level 13, you need to be level 13. Otherwise, you're going to get your ass kicked and you're going to lose all your guys.
Also, if you start playing it, don't be fooled by how easy it is at the beginning.
Right. Yeah, because it starts to ramp up.
Once you get to Hawaii, it actually, you're like, okay, this is the combat system running on all cylinders.
Because you can avoid random encounters just by, like, walking. You can see them on the street. They'll have icons above their heads or whatever. But here's the thing. You may see a group of 2 or 3 dudes walking down the street. When you go to confront them, suddenly 3 or 4 more dudes spawn.
Because his imagination is very vivid.
Right.
But even more importantly, the groups are color coded. Like there's like, I think blue is easy, red or green is easy, red is normal, pink is hard, and outline black with red outline is death.
Right.
But I've run into red guys who are just general standard pushovers, and I've run into red groups where like all of a sudden I could barely do any damage to them.
They kill the whole party. Yeah.
I've not had a full party wipe yet. But I have had Nanba die several times because he's like kind of he's like the wizard. Homeless guys are the wizards.
He's always the guy that dies.
He's the weaker of the 3.
But if the lead character dies in a battle, it's over. Mm-hmm. So you have to protect him at all costs. The other guys can die and you can keep going, but if he dies, it's over.
And it takes a while before you level his job up to get a healing spell.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically spells.
I mean, it takes and as you saw in the B-roll, you can totally go to a shop and you can improve your weapons and level those up,
and you can buy new ones. Tons of items everywhere, and you can
there's stores everywhere.
It's if you pick up everything you find, you can sell all those plates and everything for a fair amount of money anyway.
Yeah.
Like when I got to Hawaii, I had $800.
I don't know if I've ever had $800. Seriously.
And then that was also the fun. When you get to Hawaii, they translate. They change your yen to dollars, and they do it like 100 yen per dollar. I'm like, that ain't
not anymore.
That ain't the exchange rate in 2023. And this does take place this year. This does take place in.
I mean, it talks all about COVID and the lockdown.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how they've incorporated like real life stuff to this.
Yeah. There's definitely several moments where I was like, "Oh wow, okay." This game's also made in Japan, but there's a lot of American stuff in this unique to our experience,
including a lot of interesting like English voice acting.
Yeah.
And
voice acting is generally really good.
It is very good. I did go with Japanese.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I have no interest in hearing these characters speak of these terrible English dub. Like, not that the performance of Ichiban is terrible in English, but that I don't agree with the voice casting. He doesn't sound like that character should sound.
Yeah.
But even if you're playing in Japanese, a lot of characters in Hawaii speak English.
Yeah.
The one thing I do have a problem with is like you meet a character very early on who does podcasts, like a podcast, and they say, "Oh, listen to it." The podcasts aren't subtitled.
No, really.
So you listen. It's just Japanese. I'm sure it's very interesting, but I don't understand what you're saying.
Tekken was that way. There's a lot of Japanese in that game. Like characters just speak Japanese, and if you turn off the subtitles, it won't have the translation on the screen. It just completely wipes it out. So you either go with no subtitles and you don't understand what the Japanese characters are speaking, or you turn them on.
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of annoying. But anyway, you're kind of looking through the menus here. Again, the leveling up happens automatically for both your class rank and for your character level. You don't get to choose like where you put the points or anything like that. That just all happens organically after each battle or after you level up in either rank or in your character level. The funny thing about this, Matt, is I feel like, have you ever been to Oahu, Waikiki?
Oh, yeah.
This world is way bigger than the real Waikiki. Waikiki literally is one frickin' street. Mm-hmm. It is one street, Matt, that you walk down and has, I don't know, 50 stores on one side and 50 stores on the other side of the street, and that's it. The rest of Oahu, the island, is just an island paradise. But in this, it makes it feel like it's New York City. Like,
well, Honolulu's a pretty decent-sized city.
It's not, though.
It is. I mean,
you can literally walk from one end of Honolulu to the other end of it in like 20 minutes on foot.
But you can do that in this too.
No, it takes longer. The world of this is actually bigger than the real Waikiki, the downtown area. It is, absolutely.
Waikiki is just the beach.
No, Waikiki is that strip along the beach with all the hotels and all the restaurants. And then the rest of Oahu is not like a city. It's just like a town.
Honolulu is a city.
It's not, though, really.
I mean, not by LA standards, but it is the biggest city in Hawaii.
Yeah, but that's that strip. That's all there is. The rest of the island is just like plantations.
If you go past
you go to the North Shore.
If you go past the resort side, you go past the resort side, there is a city there.
Not really, though.
I mean, I'd call it a city. It's got
I don't know. I was there for like 2 weeks, and we stayed right in Waikiki, and I could walk from one end of that. We walked to Diamond Head like every day to take pictures and videos. Like, this is bigger than what's really there, which is good because it would be a boring place for a game like this.
I mean, I've been to the mall in this. Like, they're all real places.
There's one mall on that strip in Waikiki.
Yeah. I mean, there's no escape room. I mean, maybe there is now. I haven't been there in like 20 years.
Well, you get to another mall later on called the Anaconda Mall, and it's this like mall that's only made of counterfeit stuff, and all these counterfeiters come from all over the world to shop and buy their counterfeit stuff there to take back to China or wherever they're from.
That still might be real. I don't know.
It might be.
Some weird shit goes on in Honolulu.
Well, that island is kind of America, but is it really? So anyway,
the Hawaiians would tell you it's not.
What I was getting at is that overall, I'm impressed with the world in this. It's not. If it were the size of like that Waikiki strip, like, it's not enough. They needed to make it bigger.
I mean, 350,000 people live there. It's
on Oahu.
In Honolulu, the city of Honolulu.
I mean, that's basically Oahu, though. It's the whole island.
No, Honolulu is a specific city in the corner there where the Waikiki River
by Diamond Head, yeah.
But the big island, the island is much bigger than that. Like, you drive. I've driven around it. It takes like an hour.
Yeah. Did you go up to the Dole Plantation with the crazy maze, the hedge maze?
No, I drove past. I went past it because I was going to the Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. But see, all those areas around like the plantation, around Pearl Harbor, they're not like. It's not a city. It reminds me of like rural Japan a little bit.
I mean, that's a city.
Yeah. That's Waikiki.
That's Honolulu.
Well, it's Waikiki. Those are all the buildings of Waikiki.
It's Honolulu. Like, the name of the city is Honolulu.
Yeah. So anyway, what else we got to talk about here? There's a fast travel. There's taxis you can use to fast travel if you don't want to run around. You can literally just go to your menu and just choose the taxi from your cell phone and then choose the district that you want to go to. You can't really choose specific spots in the district so much, but you can go to the general area where you want to go, and you have to hoof it for maybe 100 yards or after you get out of the taxi. But there is fast travel in this if you want to fast travel. But I would argue, like, the streets are pretty alive in this. Like, I never found myself annoyed with having to run on foot. There's just people everywhere. There's stuff
always
going
enough
on.
To do.
There's like
even when it tells you to take the cab places, I generally don't.
Yeah. I'll look on the map. And if it's like all the way across the map, I will.
I'll still run because every time you run, you get to pick more stuff up and then you can sell that stuff and then it gets you more money.
No, that's true.
I mean, eventually, I'm sure they'll hit a point where it's not worth your time because you have better ways to make money. But until the resort opens, I'm going to pick up all those fucking iron plates.
Yep. What else is there to say about this game, Matt? I don't know if there's a whole lot. Well, I guess just getting to my general impressions, like, again, this game wasn't as zany or wacky as I thought it was going to be. And I honestly found lots of periods where I was just kind of bored.
I mean, it is very much, especially in the first chapter, it's very much the usual sort of Yakuza tale of weird deals and past dishonors and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of conversations, with people dramatically smoking and telling you things about characters you maybe don't remember because it's been 2 games or something. But it's I still enjoy that. I love the Yakuza games. Like I was surprised for sure that like early on it was just like, oh, this is just a straight sequel to 7. Like it's not. And, I'm sure this will be fun when I get to it, but apparently I'm not going to get to it for 25 hours.
Is that how long it takes?
I don't know.
I'm curious. Like, I wonder if anyone in the chat
if you're not there yet, then I would imagine you've got a good several hours left.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody has, oh, it doesn't look like it. Paradol, can I express how much I hate the term pound mate? Yeah. But I guess what I would say is if you think that this is a huge shift or a change from the prior games in the series, it's not. For a lot of you, you're probably celebrating. You're like, Yahoo, that's exactly what I wanted. We have a lot of Yakuza fans on Sifted. For whatever reason, a lot of you guys love the franchise. It's never connected with me. You guys know that about me. But what I'd say is if you're somebody like me who's never really connected with that franchise and you thought maybe this one, because don't forget, these last few weeks, I've talked about how hyped I was getting for this game. Like, my anticipation for this game over the last couple of weeks was really starting to swell up. And now that I've spent a bunch of time with it, I feel like I've kind of gotten the same thing out of it that I have out of prior games in the franchise. It doesn't feel all that different to me. Now, again, I haven't made it to the resort management, which may change everything.
You get to the resort in Chapter 6. It looks like you're in Chapter 4 in the B-roll.
Okay. Well, there you go. I still got a long way to go. There you go. So, again, like, the things that really, I think, maybe change the franchise the most, it takes a while to get there.
It's 14 chapters.
Oh, geez.
Buckle up.
Wow.
I mean, you get your money's worth.
You do. And I will say this, too. The gameplay variety, as I mentioned earlier, is astounding. There is stuff to do around every corner. As Matt said, 80 mini games in this. And you can just stumble around town and find that stuff. Like, and it does keep you on your toes and keep things unique. But ultimately, you still spend a lot of times with conversation. I mean, I missed an important plot point, honestly, because very quickly into this game, I was just hitting X just to go through because literally there'll be a conversation with 2 people about something very simple, and you will have to hit the X to fast forward through that conversation. I'm not exaggerating, like 40 or 50 times. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how many times they go back and forth with each other.
I mean, on a lot of them, you can hit pause and skip the whole scene. You can hit start
and just skip them all if you want. But I don't want to do that because I want to try to make sure I don't miss the important ones, Mm-hmm. But I still do sometimes. Like, I missed a very important cinema that Matt had to fill me in on what actually happened. So, again, I feel like this is way more like the prior games in the franchise than I anticipated it being. But again, for a lot of you guys, that may be exactly what you want.
Yeah. And again, I guess if you want to take a moral stance or whatever, I don't find the fact that they locked New Game Plus behind the Deluxe Edition to be particularly problematic. Yeah. I mean, it is in terms of a larger things that shouldn't be behind paywalls problem. But the idea that you're going to want to play this thing twice that fast is a little... Come on.
I mean, I don't know if I'd ever want to play this game twice,
You're talking about a 60 to 80 hour game.
Yeah.
You can. By the time you want to play New Game Plus, I'm going to guess you're going to be able to get that deluxe add-on for cheap.
Yeah. So who would you recommend this to, Matt?
Anyone who likes these games.
Yeah. If you like these games, go get it. Don't even think twice about it. You're going to love it.
Yeah. I think there's too much lore back in the back of this to really understand what the hell is happening early on. And at least, like, if it jumped to the resort stuff faster, maybe, but you got to go through 20, 30 hours of Yakuza, basically.
That's pretty crazy.
And as always, my recommendation is if you haven't played these games and you want to see what they're all about, play 0.
Yeah.
0 is the best one. 0 will ease you in. You'll know whether you want to play more. If you're a fan of them, absolutely great. If you prefer the action one, get The Man Who Erased His Name, because that is the classic Yakuza style. If you like the turn-based one, if you like 7, this is more with the same characters, and you'll like it.
Yeah.
So
I was a little disappointed ultimately, but it's still a quality game. Like, the craftsmanship in this is great.
Oh yeah.
They're just very long-winded. Like, I don't understand. There's no reason these conversations need to last as long as they do.
I mean, that's just Japanese drama.
It kind of is.
It's
just overly wordy.
They are drawing from a realm of like kind of melodramatic crime movies that's how things are presented.
Yeah.
And that's why there's such a tonal swing in the work, where it's hard to believe that the clips of where he's falling over and freaking out or like trying to catch bugs with costume mascots in Hawaii, and then but in the same game you'll have the very serious conversation about his mother still being alive between him and like this Yakuza guy chain smoking on a with a lazy Susan, and constantly showing him evidence of what's happening. It's like those are the same, but that's just how it's how the Yakuza Papers presents that world, and that's kind of the aesthetic they've chosen, and that's what you're stuck with, which is why it's really a breath of fresh air to get to Hawaii and be in a completely different
the tropical environment.
Even before you get to the resort, it's still like, oh, this is very different from running around Yokohama.
Well, just their outfits. They're all wearing like Hawaiian button-up shirts, and
they really jump right into
different.
it. Yeah, it's a different world, and they treat it as such, and it's presented, and it's cool. Like it is sort of an element of like, oh, it is like I never thought of that before, but it's like this series could leave Japan.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to spice this up, like you could have a Yakuza game that takes place in LA
or Vegas
or New York or Paris or like Moscow.
Now that they've left.
Yeah, now you've done it, and you kind of prove like you can adapt the whole world to sort of be this weird take on things.
They even do the whole like he's trying to find a cabbie who speaks Japanese.
Yeah.
Like, so they actually like go through the whole process of like, wow, they're not in Japan anymore, and now they need to adjust. Like,
which is like very true. I mean, and as they point out, Hawaii has a very large Japanese-speaking population, so it's not that unusual. But like, I would love to see them like take a real like swing at something like do one in like Seattle, which also has a very large Japanese-speaking population. So you could have that same situation where you could have this like community that exists that. Also, you could just have a hero that can speak English. I mean, I guess you could do that too. Yeah. But maybe not Ichiban, because he is not the brightest bunny in the forest, and that's part of the appeal. Is that you are kind of playing a big dumb Street Fighter who's sort of fumbling his way through these very delicate situations. Is part of where the humor comes from.
Part of the charm of the humor, for sure. Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. It is a $70 game, and I think Matt and I both agree that maybe hard to recognize or to recommend to non-fans, but if
it's not a starting point, but it is more goodness from the franchise,
from that studio. Yep, absolutely. So if you're a fan, go buy it. You won't regret it.
They've really never missed.
Yeah,
maybe 5 was kind
of. It's pretty amazing, actually, what they accomplish in the amount of time that they have to make these games.
Well, just how many they put Man Eraser's name out a couple months ago.
I know,
and that's just as extensive as the thing.
It's a huge game too. Yep.
It's that studio could teach some people some things.
Yep.
They should teach classes.
Yeah. So there you go. That's Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. And we're going to have enough time, not just to do Name That Game today, but also do a Q&A. But before then, here's a word from our sponsor, SoundWizardry.com. Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit SoundWizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel. That's right. Go to SoundWizardry.com for all your sound needs. They've helped us. I remember one time there was an episode of Pactor Factor where he had a fan on, and I couldn't hear it. It was down by his feet, and he didn't tell me that he had it. And the mic was picking up the fan for all the episodes we recorded. And he went in and tried to remove the fan noise out of all those episodes. That's the type of stuff he can do on a very basic level. That's the stuff that he does. He is really a sound wizard. That's a perfect name for it. But here's the thing. Next week, our sponsorship with SoundWizardry.com shifts into another dimension. I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys, but our new sponsorship stuff with them is going to be really cool and really fun. And I'm just really over the moon that he was down with it, because I kind of gave him this crazy idea. I was like, I didn't think he was going to say okay, but he did, and it's going to be awesome. So in next week's show, when we kind of change things around here on GameFace, we're going to have a new angle on our sponsorship with SoundWizardry.com. It's something to look forward to. I think you guys are going to like it. And with that, it's time for... That's right. It's time for Name That Game, where I show you screenshots from a video game and you try to guess the name of the game before Matt. We haven't done this in a long time. Mm-hmm. We didn't do it for the last month of last year, and now we're almost a month into this year. We haven't been able to do it. Our shows have just been packed with our content. It kept being cut. In fact, this installment of Name That Game has been sitting on the TriCaster here for 2 months. I had an episode ready, and we could just never get to it. So we're going to do it today. A couple things before we get going. Everybody's available. Mm-hmm. You guys no one's won this year, so everyone can compete. And the way it usually works is once you win, you can't play again for the rest of the year. We haven't done it this year, so everybody's in. That's one thing that you should keep in mind. Number two, if you don't play PC games, please do not play. Because if you win, you beat Matt, you get a free PC game code. We give away games for this, people, for the winner. So make sure you do that. What's the third one? There's always a third one I forget. Oh.
Slow mode?
Slow mode, yeah. So you have, you're on slow mode now in the chat, which means you can only input one chat every 60 seconds. So don't just start all willy-nilly just typing in game titles into the chat. What's going to happen is you're going to type in one, you're not going to be able to type in another for another minute, and someone else is going to win. So only type in guesses when you have an educated guess, and you have at least somewhat of an idea of what the game might be. And with that, we're ready to go. 5 screenshots. Usually you guys get it in the first couple. We'll see how it goes this time. But here we go. Here is the first screenshot for Name That Game. People can get it from this. I guarantee it. Hybrid Heaven, no. Glover, no. People can get it from this. I wouldn't be surprised if someone does. Death Stranding, no. But that's a good guess, Mitchell Ness. Rainbow Six Siege, there it is. Yep. We have a winner. Vinuraba wins it. Yeah. If you played this game, I realize now that this was a really too obvious of a clue for someone who really plays it. And all the guesses are coming in. You guys are all wrong, except for Vinuraba, who got it with Rainbow Six Siege. Dead Space, no. Resident Evil 2 Remake, no. Cyberpunk, Last of Us, MGS5, Tomb Raider. Did anybody else guess it?
No.
Nope. Hybrid Heaven 2. I wish Fire Native. I would play Hybrid Heaven 2, man. I definitely would. So anyway, I thought I gave it away with the first one, and I did for someone who plays Siege. Here's the second screenshot. Here's the third screenshot. That garish carpeting, I figured that might have given it away. Here's the fourth shot. You can see that case there. That might have given it away. And then here is the last one, which shows basically the slats that you put up when you're fortifying the doors and the windows. And if somebody would have got it from that, nobody watching was playing Rainbow Six Siege. So congratulations, Vinuraba. Here's another round of applause for you for being the first winner of Name That Game for 2024. And you can DM me here on Twitch. You can DM me on Twitter. I'm at Dinfire. You can DM Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games, or you can just go at Shane on Sifted.net and send me a DM there. Get to me, and I'll get you your code. Congratulations once again. And now we have some time for some Q&A. If you guys have any questions for us, we actually have a good bit of time. Oh, we already got a couple in here. Silk Snake, do you need an updated Name That Game jingle? That would be awesome. We've been using the same one that you made us for quite a while now, and if you're willing to make another one, that would be great. Or maybe we could get soundwizardry.com to make us one, actually. Maybe I'll think about that. But let me know, actually, if you're planning on making it so I don't reach out to them, and we'll make sure we have a new jingle for next week's show one way or the other. Question from Sifted. Let me bring this up so everyone can see the questions. In Exile says, Shapeshifter, Exfoliation Studio, is helping with Clockwork Revolution. Is high-profile external help with both that and Perfect Dark a good or bad trend for Microsoft? I think it's good. Because, Matt, all I really care about is that ultimately the games are great before they're released. So to me, this is Microsoft or the studios working on these games recognizing that, hey, maybe we're in over our head here, or we're tracking towards not hitting our release window. And they're recognizing it, and they're like, we're going to send in the troops and try to get this done in time, or at least make the game better so that when people actually play it, they'll enjoy it. So I think it's all good. Like, I think it's good when you recognize that you have a weakness or a problem and you address it. It's better than just sitting back and being like, it'll be fine.
It's also a good way for them to test out this new dev, and maybe Microsoft will want them to do something bigger for them next.
Yeah, it could be good for the studio.
Microsoft will buy them.
You're right. Yeah. That's actually a good point. I mean, I think if you're a smaller-ish studio, that's kind of your goal, right? Yeah. Is to work with a partner that can purchase you.
Give you a constant, guaranteed income stream while maybe you have a smaller team working on what you want your next original thing to be.
Yeah.
And then maybe Microsoft's interested.
And they sign up that next original thing as an exclusive. So, yeah, I'm totally cool with that. I'm glad Microsoft is doing it. It's better than just, acting like the problem's just going to go away, because then you end up with bad games and layoffs. Mm-hmm. So, we've had enough of those already.
It's also a way to staff up to a larger team without having to lay everybody off at the end of it.
It's true. No, you're absolutely right. Yep. Totally agree with you, Matt. So, yeah. There you go. J. Reed Vic 7. Is the success of Pal World, at least in part, an indictment of how Game Freak has failed to evolve the Pokemon franchise and make stuff for mature audiences? I don't know if it's that.
I don't know about mature audiences, but I do think it's an indictment. There's an older audience that wants a more involved take on the material. I don't think you need them to have guns or eating each other.
Right. But
people clearly, the older Pokemon fans clearly want something that's a little more engaging, a little more, evolved.
Yeah.
I think Pokemon Company's idea is more like there's always some new generation of kids who has not played a Pokemon game and they don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Which they're right.
Yeah,
so far, clearly that strategy has been paying off. But yeah, I would say there's an older audience that wants to be served in a different way, and Pal World's success is, I think, certainly a reflection of that. Does it matter? Probably not.
No. To Game Freak, I don't think it matters.
Freak,
no. Yeah. I agree with Matt 100%. He basically just took the words right out of my mouth. It's more about this revelation that there are people who grew up playing Pokemon who are ready for games of that type that maybe cater a little more edgy, that cater more to adults. I don't think it's necessarily an indictment that's going to make Game Freak sit up and go, holy crap, we need to make an M-rated Pokemon. I don't see that happening. The thing is Pokemon games still sell like crazy. So why would Game Freak change it? It's it would be risky for Game Freak to do that. I think it took some steps already with Pokemon Legends Arceus that are steps in the right direction. So I do hope that it continues in that way.
It would be nice to see them experiment with maybe outside the main series. Because the main series doesn't seem to ever have any intention of being anything more than my first JRPG.
Yeah. No, I would like to see it run better at least.
Oh, yeah,
built on a better engine and stuff.
Well, especially because it's so weird that those games run so poorly when the Switch has games that look way better and do similar things and run way fine. It's like how in the world is Xenoblade 3 and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on the same system?
Yeah.
And both first party. Not wholly first party, but it's what?
Yeah, I hear you. Yep, I hear you.
I understand that. I'm not a huge Pokemon fan, but I understand the frustration that a lot of veteran Pokemon fans have, where it's why isn't this better?
Yeah, I don't necessarily. I'm a fan, and I don't necessarily want the old Pokemon to go away. I have nieces and nephews. I want them to discover Pokemon and enjoy it and be able to play it. So. I don't know that my goal is to get Game Freak to make a teen-rated or an M-rated Pokemon.
No. But I think it's a good example of how Arceus maybe didn't go far enough in differentiating itself.
Sure. And I also think maybe it inspires other studios to be like, hey, there's an adult audience for this game design. And maybe we get more games like Pal World.
Maybe it is worth ripping the Pokemon idea off, even though it is hard to make.
Right. Yep. So
it does feel like Pokemon Companies is leaving money on the table there. Yeah. They certainly have, if they wanted to, they'd have the bandwidth to make those a more advanced kind of survival crafting Pokemon style game alongside the mainline series.
Yeah.
But which is what Arceus was. But
they can keep pushing the envelope there with the
I would
spin-offs.
certainly take, if I were them, I'd certainly take the lesson okay, Pokemon Legends can be a lot more involved than, we could have base building and crafting and survival elements. We can really go a little further than we dared go in the first one.
Yep.
But we'll see if they actually follow it. Also, it's not like kids can't handle that stuff. They play Minecraft.
Right.
They play all these games that already
They're the ones
that
love the survival games. Yeah. It's not me.
Honestly, that's the thing. Well, because that's the thing is so. Other than sort of the weird edgy stuff for the sake of edgy stuff with the guns and the cannibalism, and owning people, that's a little weird. But there's nothing in the core gameplay concepts of Pal World that isn't already established as something kids already like to play and handle just fine. it's not even a mature angle on it. It's more like just incorporating the current gameplay trends in games that kids already play.
Yeah,
so it's weird that like you don't have you'd think that would be appealing to that demographic as well as the older demographic.
Yep, for sure.
So, I don't know.
Okay. Next. Eve Demon, have you seen the article by Matthew Ball talking about the financial state of the games industry? Too much money is being spent for amount of that's brought in. Well, I think Matt and we've talked about this for a while on GameFace. It's just big bets. Like you are gambling now on concepts. And my biggest hang up with it is that it stifles innovation. It makes developers scared to try new things, scared to do new things with games. It makes publishers not sign up studios that are trying new things. Instead, they're going to go with the tried and true because it's just...
Sometimes they do try new things and the system has no idea how to promote it.
Right.
And so they fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
Like clearly, Bethesda, ZeniMax, and now Microsoft, they clearly don't have any clue how to promote Arcane's games.
No, you're right. They failed over and over again.
Maybe Blade will change that.
Yeah.
But it's... The game industry has kind of fallen into this, not as badly as the Hollywood system, but they've fallen into that trap of like tentpole blockbusters being all, because that comes from the infinite growth capitalism myth, where it's like everything has to provide this huge spike in the chart.
Forever.
Everything has to be infinite growth. For everything, the line has to go up no matter what, and you don't get that dramatic line up with smaller things that do fine or well.
Yeah.
You get it with Avengers Endgame. You get it with Dune 2. You know
The Last of Us Part 2.
That's how you get, and so like everyone's obsessed with chasing that thing. The problem is that again, when you're laying that much money out for these big projects, if one of those projects goes awry, you lose tons of money. And there's a bunch of people found that out the hard way in the movie business last year, when everything except Barbie and Oppenheimer and Godzilla -1 pretty much underperformed.
Yeah.
And everyone can talk about Marvel fatigue or superhero fatigue all they want, but it also hit Indiana Jones, and it also hit Mission Impossible, and it also hit Fast and the Furious. Like it has to be more than that. Like the novelty of going back to the theater is over, and everybody's just like, well, it'll come to streaming in like a month. Who cares? And so like
that's how I look at it.
You have to figure that out. And gaming's having a similar thing where it's like, if you get rid of all the, it's basically indie games and a AAA. And if they don't find that medium out and figure out something a little more sustainable in terms of, at least taking risks that then maybe pay off. Because look, who in the world would have greenlit PUBG back in the day?
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
No one would have done.
Well, that's why it was an indie game made by one dude.
Right. But it's like, that's the thing. It's like, and same with Fortnite, really.
Yeah.
Like the big thing that has defined a generation of gaming and a generation of gamers, if we're honest, those kids, Fortnite is, and that is, buckle up for 40 years from now when the Fortnite crowd is has disposable income and is like trying to recapture the youth and you just can't get away from the fucking floss again.
Right. They're big bets.
That never would have come out of the big bet blockbuster system,
right?
That had to come from a world where, imagine trying to pitch the battle royale game to a game development studio executive in 2012.
Yeah,
they would have looked at you like you're crazy.
Yep. I mean, they looked at him like he was crazy when he built it, and then.
I mean, when I first heard of it, I still looked at him like he was crazy. I'm like, really? That? It's like,
well, I just was shocked how such a simple concept became so popular.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? That's all it took? But
remember
that's how it works.
And the biggest thing about it at the time was how fast you got back into it.
Yeah.
It let you keep playing. You'd have to sit in a lobby. You'd have to sit around. You log this thing less than a minute later, you're playing another one of these big, huge games.
Call of Duty figured out a long time ago.
Yeah, but it's like, but the thing that Battle Royale had was, it felt like you were part of a big thing. There was 100 other people. Anything could happen. Like, it was exciting to start a match of that.
And just flying through the sky and seeing all the people in the sky.
It had scope and it had scale and it had excitement because you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And especially at that point in a multiplayer game, when was the last time that happened?
A long time.
Multiplayer stuff was all about Call of Duty was go here, that's the choke point here, there's a choke point. They're going to come around the corner there. We put the mine there. And all of a sudden it was you can't predict anything because it's so big and open. There's so much
people,
chaos.
Yeah. It's chaos.
But imagine no one would have funded that for me. EA putting that out is nonsense. And then by the time it all blew up, it was too late.
Well, even some of the safest bets don't work out that great. I was shocked to see how little The Last of Us Part 2 sold. Like, it still sold great. Like, they turned a profit on it.
I mean, to be fair, that was still pretty early. I mean, the last numbers, I think, were February 2022, but it's still, almost 2 years after it came out.
Yeah. And it sold, 13 or something?
Something like that, yeah.
So, again, there's a huge bet that you would figure is a no-brainer. The sequel to The Last of Us. There's no surer bet. And then the game comes out, and it gets like 9.5, 10s across the board. You think that's the surest bet. And while they did make a profit on the game, I'm betting not as much as they wanted to. So
I think it's more or less what they expected to.
Yeah, you think so? I mean, those games are dark and
there's more limited audience. It's an M-rated game. It's just sort of like, it's not, quote unquote fun. It's more of an art project. Yeah. I will say, I bet they have higher sales expectations now in the wake of the TV show. I'm sure nobody at Sony has a problem with how those games sold because they have a Golden Globe from it now.
Yeah.
It's a
crossover.
It's a crossover hit that's going to keep Sony IP rolling in it for a long time now. They're probably going to get 4 or 5 seasons out of that thing.
Probably.
And so no problem there. But I mean, then meanwhile, I was shocked that Horizon sold as well as it did. Even up again, they're making fun of the PC version again because it's coming out like 3 days before. Dragon's Dogma 2, which is like, are we really going to call Dragon's Dogma 2 the big mind share sucker? I mean, because the other ones were Zelda and Elden Ring. Right. Are we really Dragon Dogma 2? No, come on. But like, clearly it didn't hurt the sales. Yeah. Clearly the Horizon games sell really well. So, which, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Horizon games. I was just kind of shocked that they did as well as they did because sometimes it seems like no one plays them except like a little group of people that just like those games. And again, and good evidence that it's important to remember that most of the audience that makes these things super mega hits aren't us.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, we can take one more. And we'll actually 2 more because one's just funny. Squishy Muffin says, could Taylor Swift be the push the VR industry needs considering she can influence elections allegedly?
Taylor Swift could help, yes. You know what? If you could only see that Taylor Swift concert video on an Oculus...
Seriously. There you go. I mean, she really could move the needle. That's how big she is. And then finally, from Drifter J, is there any game character who's fallen off that you still have a soft spot for whatever reason? I still think Raziel is the coolest.
Sonic.
Yeah?
I like Sonic the Hedgehog, even though I haven't liked any of his games in about 20 years.
Yeah. Once upon a time, I probably would have said Jack. But really, it's Daxter. Yeah. Daxter's the better of those two. And they both have been gone for way too long now, and now Naughty Dog has moved away from the whimsy and into the dark and the deathly serious. I don't know if we'll ever see Daxter again.
I mean, if you're talking about like just things that haven't appeared in a long time, I think Raziel's a good pick.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I think you're not alone on that one, by the way. I think there's a lot of people who are hoping that franchise
Raziel and Kane are 2 of the greatest game characters of all time, and it's just weird that no one wants to touch him again. I can understand not wanting to follow Amy Hennig in the writing department. That's a tough thing to live up to. Mm-hmm. Soul Reaver 2 is one of the best dialogue games in ever.
That's where it came from. Yep, she wrote it.
But if you're talking about stuff that's been gone forever, I'll say Sly Cooper.
That's a good one too.
I mean, all those Sony mascot games,
because they've just went away. Sony's like, we only make games for like adults now. Like it feels like it's really abandoned like the younger audience. Other than Ratchet and Clank, like there's nothing really for kids on PlayStation anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ratchet's the strongest of those 3.
Astrobot.
If you're going to talk about like that kind of triumvirate of platformer, mascot characters from the PS2 era, I think you got Sly and Ratchet and Jack. Mm-hmm. I think Ratchet's the strongest. Well, the one you want to carry forward is Ratchet. Yeah. But I miss Sly, and it's too bad that not that Sly 4 was bad, but it wasn't Sucker Punch, and it kind of killed it.
Yeah, lost
undersold.
It's lost some momentum there.
It's too bad.
Yeah, there's tons. I mean, there's so many characters that have fallen by the wayside over time. But one thing I will say is that over the last couple years, I've been shocked. Like somebody made a joke about Glover during Name That Game. Mm-hmm. Like games like that are actually in the IP like that are being revived in some cases. Like
everyone's just like, okay, well if you can get
like, do we really need another Earthworm Jim game? Probably not.
No, well, the good news is we're never going to get that one. So that was a Miko thing, and the Miko didn't happen, so we're fine. Yeah. But every once in a while, you're like, did we need a Voodoo Vince remaster?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Like,
what was that 3D platformer franchise, Taz the Tasmanian Tiger or whatever? They made a sequel to that.
Tiger, yeah.
It's like nobody bought the first one.
Like you're waiting for something from that, like the Arrow the Acrobat,
right?
To show up or so.
Rocket Robot on Wheels.
Yeah.
There's one. Rocket is awesome. That's one of the coolest freaking characters like ever.
That's Sucker Punch.
And
man.
I doubt we'll ever see another one of those.
Sucker Punch's first game.
Yeah.
Got sent to die up against Rayman 2 by Ubisoft.
Yeah.
Ubisoft published that game and put it out on the same day they put out Rayman 2.
Rocket came in a red cart, right?
Did.
Yeah. So there you go. There's some picks for you. And that's going to do it for GameFace 374. And honestly, that's going to do it for this interpretation of GameFace. This will be the last episode that looks exactly like this one and functions exactly like this one. Thanks for all your support as we've done tons of episodes like this. We really appreciate you guys. We appreciate everyone who supports us. And if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on any of the podcast services and you want to help us, just go to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. You can pledge whatever you want there, but if you pledge $4 or more per month, you get all our content early, and generally that means at least 3 to 4 days earlier than we publish it on YouTube for everybody for free. So there's a lot of value in being one of our patrons, and we'd really appreciate it if you could do that. If you can't, there's tons of other ways you can help us. If you're watching on YouTube, go down below into our description, and there's a way that you can help us if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. You can give us a free $2.50 every month that costs you nothing. And if you can't do that, you're not a Prime subscriber, just review the show. And I will say, I just went and checked on Apple Podcasts, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that some of you guys had gone in and we had new reviews for the show here over the most recent period. Please keep doing it. It makes a difference when people search for video games on podcast services. The more reviews we have, the more we bubble up in the list. So again, you can do stuff for us. It doesn't cost you anything, and we appreciate all of it. Just go on social media and just share the show. Say, hey, this is my favorite gaming podcast. If you like video games, you should give it a watch. All that stuff matters and makes a difference for us, and we appreciate it very, very much. So,
also Banjo-Kazooie. Where the hell are they?
Oh yeah. Although rumblings are happening, so it might be coming.
Yeah, right alongside Perfect Dark.
Yeah, I'm just going to predict it 5 more times before it finally comes to fruition. Cinetyke, long live GameFace. Damn right. Thank you guys. And just thanks to everybody. Thanks for chat. You guys, again, were awesome today. You guys made the show better, as you always do. Thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. We really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great week full of gaming and awesome games. We'll see you next Tuesday for the new GameFace, but this one is up and out.